Member Large St. Dixon is here. Anyone know where Ali is? Ali Caliber?
She's on her way.
Hello.
Hello.
Senator Taylor Quinn will not be present. Senator Dylan Congress. Senator Andrew Bucci is here. Block Rep John Hunt is present. Block Rep Rebecca Hayworth. Does anyone know where Rebecca is?
Yeah.
No one knows where Rebecca is?
I mean, I'm sure it's correct. Quite clear.
Again. Women's Community Rep Alex Killam will not be here. Black students representative is Coles. The Della rep. Is there someone named Ben here? We have a new Della representative. Ben Hammer. Anyone know where Ben is? Does anyone know Ben? Does anyone know someone named Ben Hammer? He's the new Della. Hammer. Hi, Ben. Welcome. Sorry to swarm you and keep up. I'm just doing the roll call. So have a seat. International students rep. Auburn's not going to do it. Does anyone know where Auburn is? He definitely has some. International students rep Wanta Shar is here. Residence rep Scott Rarity. Did I see Scott?
He's here. He was checking his card with us.
Okay. Residence rep Tiana Dumarovsky will be late. Sexton campus director Jamel Vargas is here. DAS rep Caitlin Lowe is here. DAS rep Christine Reagan is here. The DSS rep Amelia Lindsay is here. DSS rep Logan Brothers is here. Dues president Brandon Price is here. Engineering rep Sydney Miller. Architecture rep Dan Smith is here. Chris Pervin, computer science rep. We have a new computer science rep, by the way. It's Chris Pervin again. Does anyone know where Chris is?
No. Oh, no.
Management rep Mackenzie Arnold will not be present. Commerce rep Kim Meriden is here. Health professionals rep Jasmine Crew is here. Law rep Lee Staples may or may not be here. No. Do we have a dentistry rep here today? Charlotte or Tom? Does anyone know where Charlotte or Angela Tom may be? Ed rep Edwin Whalen. Do you know where Emily is? Dags rep Nazneen Sultan is here. Dags rep Bishwa Patel. Anyone know where Bishwa is? And Chloe, our secretary, is not here yet. So my attempts at slowing down the roll call and let Chloe show up have been unsuccessful. Unless that's her coming now. Hey guys. Was Chloe down there? The secretary?
Let me call her if you want.
Please.
She's on her way, I know that much. She went to the sub.
Can't just see without a sense. Sorry, John?
She went to the sub, she's on her way.
You know,
That happened, is that? Oh.
Yeah, I told her. Can she not catch up from the video?
I mean, it's,
I can take minutes, briefly, if it's just roll call. I can also take minutes.
well, what's the next thing in the agenda? It's,
Do presentations first.
yeah, I would rather we proceed with the secretary, so perhaps let's look at nominations for someone to take minutes.
Andrew, I can just take minutes.
So does someone want to nominate Kaylee? Rebecca, seconded by Ali. I have to take the minutes for this now.
It's an incidental motion.
I like your thinking. So are there any further nominations for the position of secretary before Chloe gets here? Any further nominations? Any recommendations for secretary until Chloe gets here? Temperature check. People like Haley to give a short speech outlining her qualifications, yay or nay? In my opinion, the people who don't want the speech permit. So thanks, Haley, for stepping up too late. I trust that you can take minutes of what just happened. Is there any business arising out of the agenda? Andrew?
Motion to move items 6 and 7 to the bottom of the agenda and item 10 up to after item 8.
All right, let's deal with that one at a time. So you want to move business of the executive to, it would have to be before notice of motion. Like after item 11, or after item 10G. Okay. Is that motion a second?
Wait, there's,
Eric? Any discussion on that?
why are we moving 10 up?
I'm moving it down. Or sorry, I'm trying to get all the important stuff for referendum and the presentations to the size I can.
Is there any further discussion around moving the executive session until? Yes, Joe.
We're trying to get all the important stuff, well, sorry, not to say other businesses is important to get the referendum questions and the presentations higher up in the agenda.
Dan?
I personally think that we should just vote on moving 6 down and then discuss 10 up after the fact. Friendly, can we separate that?
I could, yeah, I could.
Well, you're moving an amendment, so what was it that you want to do, Dan?
I think we should split it, because I feel like there might be debate.
Split which?
6 and 7 down, 10 up, I'll take it.
Yes. Split moving 6 and 7 down from moving 10 up. Is that right?
So you want to move? Repeat that.
6 and 7 to above 11.
That's exactly what Andrew.
Yes, but then he also said to move 10 up.
No, we're dealing with that after. So I already split the motion. Is there
Sorry,
any further
I did
discussion
not
around?
hear
Is there any
that.
further discussion around moving items 6 and 7 after item 10G?
Point of clarification.
Yes.
So what happened is that
The motion is to move executive business and the report of the board of governors after item 10G in the agenda, right before notices of motion.
the rest remains same.
Correct. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Do you understand the question? Then we'll move to a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Does anyone want their abstentions to be sent in the minutes? Is there any further business? Yes, Kate.
I would like to move item 8 presentations to be after item 5 appointments.
Both of the presentations?
Yes.
After item 5?
Yes.
No. That's actually already there. Is there any further business arising out of the agenda? Oh, yes, pardon me. And I'll allow you to move that other motion that you want.
Motion to move item 10 up to after item 8.
So you want new business, all of the new business before all of the old business? Does the motion have a seconder? Agenda. So the motion is to move all of new business, all 6 items, okay, before old business. So new business includes the elections discussion, the equity policy, the 2 governance committee, the 2 governance motions, the motion to send policy on policy, the motion to adopt social media code of conduct, and the motion to strike an ad hoc student services committee. All of those would be moved after the presentations, and old business would follow. Yes, Kate.
I would recommend instead of moving all that is in new business to be before old business, that would move item A from new business to be before old business. And that's the motion that's referring to the referendum levy society questions. And then leave the rest of the motions to go after the motions that are in old business.
I think that makes sense. So if my suggestion would be that if you disagree with the motion to move all new business to after the presentations, that you vote against the motion before the vote.
Motion to rescind.
It's before council at this point because it's been seconded. Is there any further discussion around the motion to flip new and old business? So I'll call it Joanne.
So we are voting for Andrew's motion, right?
To move all of new business after the presentation.
So can you, okay, is it seconded already?
Yes. Is there any further discussion? Do you understand the question? All those in favor? All those opposed? Any abstentions? So the motion doesn't carry. Would anyone like their assents or abstentions noted in the minutes? Is there any other business rising on the agenda? Yes, Jacqueline?
I'd like to remove item 10B from the agenda.
Does that motion have a second?
What is?
10B.
I saw it.
Is there any discussion?
I would like to-
Yes. Yes.
As you all know, I handed out a draft last week when I was giving my executive report. I noticed this motion ages ago. That draft was just a draft, and I never sent in any formalized copy. We never sat down as a group and discussed it. So it was not meant to be noticed for this meeting or to be voted on at this meeting.
Is there any further discussion? Is anyone opposed to deleting item 10B from the agenda? Then it will be deleted from the agenda. Is there any other business arising on the agenda? Yes, Amy.
Motion to move 10A up to after item 8.
So the elections discussion after the presentations. Does that motion have a second? Caitlin. So the motion is to move the elections discussion after presentations. Is there any discussion around that? Is anyone opposed to proceeding in that manner, to moving the elections discussion after presentation? Then we'll simply proceed in that manner. Is there any other business arising on the agenda? Would someone like to move the agenda? Dan, seconded by Scott. Do you understand the question? All those in favor? All those opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Would anyone like their dissents or abstentions noted in the minutes? Okay, we have an agenda. We will begin. Pardon? Oh, hi, Chloe. Let's see. Are there any corrections to the minutes of January 14th, Dan?
Architecture should be architecture and planning.
Thank you.
Science. I read them all.
Where is that? Architecture. Are there any other corrections to the minutes? Rebecca?
You guys have an email that I sent you?
What page was that on?
The 18 sexual abuse.
Page 18?
Yeah.
Where was it?
It's under 11.
There it is. Are there any other corrections in the minutes? Scott?
Spell my name, right?
I probably am not able to do that, given my past record.
RAIRDAN.
My apologies. Any other corrections to the minutes? Would someone like to move the minutes? JD, seconded by. We want people. Raglan. Is anyone opposed to putting the minutes on the website? Okay, then we'll place them on the website. Right. Okay. Communication proceed. So would someone like to move this motion in 4A? Would someone like to move this motion in 4A? Ram, seconded by Caitlin. Do you want to explain what this is about, right?
So essentially, this is a council decision whether they want a presentation of the budget advisory committee at a council meeting or at our AGM. So we have that.
So just for clarity, the university's budget advisory committee has indicated its desire to conduct consultation with students, and it's indicated its availability for March 3rd. For March 3rd before the DSU general meeting, and also on March 11th for council. So it's probably wise for council to pick a date. Like, would people rather the university budget advisory committee come before council and ask questions, or would you rather they go at the AGM? Is there any discussion on that? Caitlin?
AGM would mean that we would have at least 70 students in the room, which if they're looking for a consultation, it's a pretty decent size to start from at the very least. And maybe we'll pay more attention to the video broadcast from it and
want to get involved.
75 actually. Any other discussion? Yes, Rose.
Yeah, I'd like to make that point that, it makes much more sense for us to bring as many students as possible to this. And it's nice to have the budget advisory committee in a setting where, you have a very diverse population there to respond to the presentation.
Caitlin.
It's also a lot more easy for a student to come up and speak at an AGM than it is for them to speak at a council meeting, and it's more of an open forum and less intimidating of an atmosphere.
Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? So the manner in which we should proceed here, I think, is that you pick one date, either March 3rd or March 11th. March 3rd before the AGM, March 11th before council. Is there any more discussion? Do you understand the question? Yes. Well, it's an invitation, right? Yeah, I mean, if you don't want them to come, you can obviously amend it.
Oh, sorry, March 3rd is council, March 11th.
No, March 11th.
Okay, opposite.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't want them to come at all, then you can amend it to say,
Okay, no,
that's not the wrong. So,
just clarify.
Yes, Dan.
That was all.
so the question is whether we invite them on March 3rd before the AGM or March 11th before council. Do you understand the question? March 3rd before AGM. All those in favor? March 11th before council. All those in favor? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Would anyone like their other options or abstentions noted in the minutes? Okay. Faculty Facilities Improvement Committee. We're so the member from Southern Campus, Lee Staples, submitted a resignation. I don't know if it's useful to explain what the Facilities Improvement Committee is briefly, Mahmood.
Yes, I think the last meeting we appointed committee members, but unfortunately the Lardy campus Lee Staples steps down, and we need to fill that spot. So any council member or any non-council member from Starley campus can join the committee. And the way the committee looks, it deals with the amount of money dedicated to facility improvement in the budget, especially in the SAP and other students managed space around the campus. The committee sits on regular basis and make priorities about the events. So I think the committee, as it formed last council meeting, yet to have their first meeting. We're having one soon, so it's very important to have one Starley student at the company.
So at this time, I'll solicit nominations for the Studley campus representative on the Facilities Improvement Committee. I do have one nomination from Bart Soroka. However, he didn't ask any councilor present if they would nominate him. I'd like to nominate Bart Soroka Christine. So I'll wait to read this little thing. Are there any further nominations for the Studley campus member on the Facilities Improvement Committee? Any further nominations? Any further nominations for the Studley campus member on the Facilities Improvement Committee? Temperature check. Would people like me to read Bart for the speech, yay or nay? In my opinion, the people who want the speech read prevail. Hey Andrew, this is my interest / application for this Facility Improvement Committee. I want to sit on this committee to ensure that the DSU demonstrates a fair and equitable distribution of fees with a focus on marginal benefit for the students at large. Thanks, Bart. Is there any discussion on this? Okay. Well, then I'm pleased to announce by acclamation the newest member of the Facilities Improvement Committee, Bart Soroka. So the next item on the agenda is, it's the presentation.
I have a query.
Do you have a point of information?
Yes, information. So actually, like from July to till now, from when I'm coming to this meeting, so I think so many hours we spent on making this kind of committees. So many committees we formed, but actually, which committee is doing what and like what those committees are carrying out, we're not getting that information. So what actually, like so many committees we formed, what actually they are doing, And like we are spending our time, right, in making the committee. So what actually they're carrying out?
Yeah, so I can answer that with a few things. I believe it's every councillor's duty to be on at least one committee. I believe that each committee has to report to council before the end of its term, which normally is the end of April. So far, I haven't received any notice from any committee chair that they would like to have their report submitted to council or give a presentation.
Is it done in the last term, like in the fall term?
No committee, no society, no committee gave a presentation in the fall. That's correct.
Yeah. Just because we are spending so much time, so they
I
should report
understand.
at the end of the term, for
Yeah.
sure, or else.
I don't want this to turn into a discussion because it's not properly on the agenda, but I do thank the members for bringing that to our attention. So if no one else is opposed, we'll move on to the first presentation of the evening by the Gazette. So I'll invite Jesse to come up. Did you have something that you wanted to circulate to councillors?
No, I had a PowerPoint, but it's cool. Should I present from here or from over there?
Wherever you like.
I'll present from over there for the people at home.
Sure. And I'll just remind you that you'll have no more than 15 minutes,
Yeah.
plus 15 minutes for a question and answer period.
All right, hi everyone. My name is Jesse Ward. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Dalhousie Gazette. First of all, I'd really like to thank HEMA and Joe Mel for letting me know that there is a part of the society policy that says that I have to present. It's good to know that. So yeah, I'm here pursuant to the society policy that says living societies should present to council an annual presentation with their objectives and activities for the year. So I'm going to talk a bit about that. I'm going to talk a bit about what the Gazette has been up to so far this year, what we're thinking about tonight, and what the policy is being presented tonight, the motion to review living societies, and then a bit about what we have planned for the rest of the year. So just briefly what we've been up to this year. I came into this position in March, and our publishing year began in September with the student newspaper, and we also operate online through social media and our website where we post stories. Basically, we're here at Dalhousie to cover breaking news that's relevant to Dalhousie, to have in-depth news, to train young journalists, and to be a voice in the community. We always accept input from everyone who wants to talk to us, and we publish lots of stories. So far this year, we've had about 80 different volunteers, which is a pretty good turnout. Some of the biggest stories we've had this year have been dealing with a lot of the big breaking news that came out of Dalhousie. We had a lot of in-depth coverage of the divestment movement as that was happening. And then with the dentistry scandal, we were covering that from day one, really on top of that, which was good. I heard from a lot of people in the community that they appreciated the coverage. We ran a few really in-depth sort of investigative features, all about like 8,000 words or more. But we're just sort of looking into the broader context of the dentistry scandal from sort of an insider's perspective at Dalhousie, instead of what a lot of media had been publishing, which had been a lot of speculation in our opinion. Something to note is that we have had over 80 volunteers. We're always thinking about inclusivity and diversity. That's one big thing. We're mostly volunteer run. We have one full-time staff member, that's myself, and then 12 part-time staff. Something we're looking into next year is probably a levy increase vote, so that we could possibly hire some columnists who could be like specifically diversity columnists. Right now, if you're volunteering with the Gazette, it's because you have the spare time. Not everyone does, especially people who don't have the money, and that's a problem. It's something that we're looking into how we can focus on improving that. We have 4 sections in our newspaper: news, arts, opinions, and sports. We cover that every week. We're kind of like a heartbeat in the community. If there's something happening, we can always pick up on it. We can remind students that stuff is always happening. A few student newspapers have closed down in recent years that are in Halifax. We're really the only one operating in Halifax right now. The SMU Journal stopped operating in January of last year. And the Golden Rant in the agricultural campus out of Truro, that was Dallas student paper over there, they've closed too. So right now we're doing pretty well financially. We have a readership that's comparable to any other year that's come before us. So we're feeling pretty good about that. Yeah. And another thing that we've been focusing on this year is our coverage of the DSU. We've been covering every DSU meeting so far this year. I wasn't able to make the last one because we were at a conference. But every week, people can expect DSU coverage from us, and that's something we're going to be reliable for, so I feel pretty good about that. Today, I'd like to talk a little bit about the motion that's concerning all living societies. motion to review referendum mandated levy societies. So it was back in November when I heard about plans for such a motion, and I got an email from Jonah, who was presenting this motion. And you were saying that you heard that some students on Saxon campus had been thinking about opting out of societies, like Ennisburg and the Loaded Maiden. And that some of the students you spoke with back then weren't really aware of the levy society on campus before. And more broadly about how it should be possible to opt out of levy societies online. Back then I wanted to talk to you and I emailed you a couple times, but we could never arrange a time. So I thought it was a little strange to hear that the DSU councillor wanted to present a motion that would have it possibly more easy to opt out of levy societies. For full disclosure, you can't opt out of Gazette, but you can opt out of some other levy societies. And I think it's important to consider tonight that if there's a problem where some students, maybe especially on campuses that are suddenly, if there's a problem that students don't really know what levy societies are, it sort of speaks larger to the problem of communication that's been going on in the DSU this year. If students are unaware as to what levy societies exist and how much money they're paying towards it, that is a problem. But I think there are ways to address that other than having the SRC review levy societies specifically. Should have some water. It is every society's responsibility to be inclusive and make their best efforts towards engaging with students as much as possible. And if there is any suspicion that there are specific societies that may be neglecting their mandates or making no efforts to engage students, that's something that should be looked into for sure. But I was really confused by reading this motion as it stands. It says, whereas certain levy societies have experienced low student attendance at their general meetings and low student participation in their decision making as one of the reasons that the motion should go forward. And I was really concerned how there's no criteria there saying what the low student attendance means.
I hesitate very much to interrupt anyone who's giving a presentation to the council. But I'd just like to remind the speaker that the purpose of the presentation is to outline the objectives and activities of the Gazette. So if the presenter has remarks they'd like to make on the motion, on any motion from council, I'd remind them to tailor that to the word how it affects the objectives and activities of the Gazette.
Oh, it definitely does. I have this one here.
I didn't get a copy of it.
No, sorry about that. I wasn't sure. Should I send it to a speech earlier?
You can continue.
I just want to say that, as far as communication from the DSU comes, it's mostly been the Gazette this year, which is something that has been concerning. And this is how it's getting back to our society. Where the criteria for this specific motion, for example, I'm using this as just one example, where it doesn't really say what it means for there to be low criteria, or low attendance at an AGM. Like the DSU had an AGM in October where fire patrons and very vote and actors had to be recruited to meet quorum. And I'm not criticizing the DSU when I say that, but that was the lowest student attendance. And earlier this year, the DSU said no to having an external investigation. Now you're having an internal investigation, democratic governance review, where you're going to see how the meetings are running, but that won't be completed until the current executives have gone on to other things. And so I'm concerned about that. And for example, at this AGM, where the VPFO position became elected instead of appointed, that was a big vote. But then later on, for example, VPFO, there's a budget commissioner position that became available later in December, and that was never really advertised. It's
Point of order.
Yes, Jamal.
I'm just confused. This is supposed to be a presentation of the Gazette and not on what the DSU motions have been working on. I'm not pointing out the motions. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I would remind the presenter that since the purpose here is to outline the activities and objectives of the Gazette, to tailor any comments they have about any motion that may be before council or that was before council to the objectives and the activities of the Gazette. And if the presenter does not so tailor the comments, then it remains the right of any councillor to move a point of order, asking the chair so to direct the presenter.
Sure. I just think it's a little holistic where one of our main objectives is to report on the DSU. 2 weeks ago, we published an editorial. It was called A Question for the DSU Executives, and we listed over 30 points that were published in the Gazette last year that hadn't been communicated by the DSU, which is a personal point of concern. There were different positions available from Budget Commissioner, Society Support Commissioner.
Does the member have a point of order?
Can you be a little louder?
Oh.
Then,
Sorry, louder? Yeah. Okay. The results of each town hall, changes to election policy, the referendum schedule and election schedules as they've been updated, updates on the delayed sub-renovations, details on council meetings before the minutes are posted, when certain councillors are recalled or newly appointed. None of that's really been communicated by the DSU. When, Jamal, you were talking about this motion at the last meeting, you were saying that we should see if there are meetings being held regularly by other societies, because that is just one of them. But if you look at the social media for DSU, for South House, for other societies, and I'm getting back to Gazette, there are meetings regularly posted. But, for example, today's DSU meeting, you'd only find out that it was happening through Gazette, which is something that I have readers occasionally point out. They tell us that they're kind of wondering why that is. And so that's something that I'm happy that we've been able to accomplish this year, is explaining some of these points. I think that it's really important that there's more public dialogue, basically, is what I'm saying. I think that the DSU has a great potential for like a huge voice, and sometimes it's really accomplished, and sometimes it's missing the mark. And I think that this is really relevant for me to say as the editor of the student paper, because this is what we've been up to. So as far as the rest of the year goes, last year we did have a levy proposal that was successful. The proposal was to have a new website and a video editor. Our new website should be up by the middle of February. We had a staff meeting earlier in the year. We're not really interested in having a video editor. That money is mostly, it's mostly a discretionary fund that we've been able to pay for some stories, for example. We're still looking into how we could hire other columnists. We're excited for DSU elections coverage. That's always something that students turn to us for each year. That's usually our biggest reading time. We're interested in continued coverage of the dentistry situation and being there for whenever breaking news happens. Updating students on council each week. We're having a mixer soon with CKDU. We're hanging out kind of the sub and talking to students about reports of student media. We're looking forward more to building bonds there. If we haven't had a strong relation with CKDU for a few years, then it would make sense that we would. We're also reviewing our constitution right now, being more in more accordance with policy. That's something that should happen soon. And other than that, I'm always open to input, comments, and criticism. If anyone ever wants to reach me, my email is just editor@dalgazette.com. We have meetings every Monday at 6:30 p.m. in our office in room 312 of the sub. And yeah, it would be really awesome to have DSU councilors writing in about stuff. Because you guys actually have like a real insider to what's going on. You take opinions or updates on what is going on from your perspective. If anyone has any questions.
Thank you, Jesse. Are there any questions for Jesse? Yes, Dylan?
It's not really a question, it's more a comment. And I think the tone has been conveyed already that a lot of your presentation was criticizing the DSU, which in certain forums I think is very valid. That being said, I didn't really learn as in depth as I would have liked to about what the Gazette does and how you guys monitor your activities. For example, you focus a lot on DSU, or even not even worrying about that. My concerns are around how do you ensure quality reporting? And because I know for a fact that there's been negative damage done as a result of shoddy reporting. That's a concern to me. That's something that I would like to learn more about. So you're talking about hiring more columnists. I want to learn more about quality before I hear about quantity. That's a comment that I'm making.
Definitely. Do you mean shoddy reporting in the Gazette this year? That has had negative results? Are you referring, I know we talked earlier about when we were talking about how a councillor had missed certain meetings. Is that what you're referring to? Or?
That could be an example. Sure.
Yeah. So that was an incident earlier in the year where we were tracking the attendance of councillors at meetings. And we had made a point at one meeting that there's been councillors that hadn't been to more than 3 meetings that had given regrets. And we made that point, and as a result, the councillor was removed.
So my issue, if it's okay,
I would prefer that you ask a question.
All right.
As far as how we ensure quality reporting, almost all of our staff right now have been journalism school students for at least a few years. We've had courses in ethics, reporting. We work closely with people over at the J School. We fact check our stories at least a couple times. We go through at least 2 different editors who we have faith in. And that's one of the biggest things we're there for, is to work with those especially aspiring journalists and sort of teach some of those skills from the ground.
The next person on the speakers list is Hema, but before that, I see a chair back here for Mike. Tina?
Sorry. I just wanted to say thank you for coming. Appreciate the coming on short notice. I just had a question out of curiosity. You mentioned other school newspapers that closed or that were gone.
Yeah.
Like, why is that? Like, did they close because of financial reasons or because of, they weren't getting enough readings or just?
Yeah, it's really interesting. A few of us at Gazette, we just came back from a national student journalism conference. We met with student newspaper editors from across the country. There were over 40 different papers there. And that was a really good opportunity for us to see what kind of problems are facing newspapers nationwide. It seems a really big problem nationwide has been both communication with the student union and overall finances. Print ads are dropping out of papers. Most papers are considering leaving print in the next 5 or 10 years because print ads are just selling so much more poorly. Also, I think students usually need to work more than they have to. Less time for extracurricular activities like learning newspaper. There's issues like picking blocks right now over things they're not getting their weekly student union because policy dispute. Lots of problems right now.
Jamal?
Yeah, thanks for the presentation, firstly, and just a quick question. How transparent is the Gazette's budget at the moment?
How transparent is our budget and
At present?
at present? I can send you a copy if you want it. It's not posted on our website. I can tell you right now that at the end of the year, our staff salaries are $56,000, and most of the rest is printing fees. Then there's the occasional office equipment expense. If anyone is interested, I would be totally open with, by the end of, by mid-February, I probably have our budget posted to our website. But if anyone ever has any questions, I'm totally open to answering. Just no one has asked me about our budget at all this year.
Before the next question, I wonder if there's room at the table for Tiana. Do we have room over here?
Is there a way to turn off the fan?
Yeah, you can't feel that.
It's really hard to hear.
Do we know how to turn off the fan? Does anyone know how to turn off the fan?
Actually, it's
That's better, yeah. Are there any more questions for Jesse while we try to find the source of the fan? Life of the fan. Rams.
Again, thanks for the presentation. Although I would have appreciated more in-depth look into, how you interact with students, what kind of outreach you're doing, and of course, your newspaper is outreach informed, but, to see like, who's doing what are your, most of your staff interested in, like, kind of stories or comments. Anyway, my question to you is, so, I mean, what really didn't sit well with me, and I hope you can answer this question is, I remember last year your referendum question specifically, they mentioned the website and video editor.
Yes.
And I don't know, how confident are you that you're able to not spend money on a video editor this year? Because you're taking down by levy question.
I think that if we were going purely by the levy question, it would be really easy to circumvent that loophole, and we could hire someone and not pay them, or we could have a really low quality video editor and not pay them, or we could pay them very little and use the money for other things if we were going to just go by a loophole. The conversation that happened at the beginning of the year is that we had other things to focus on before multimedia, before focusing on video specifically. We posted a video editor ad, only a couple of people applied over the summer, and we weren't really, and the conversation that we had was just that it wasn't something we were interested in. If there was interest from the students, or if the DSU, if there was within our policy that you said that we would have to fulfill that levy requirement, and I mentioned that specifically because I want to be transparent that it was a conscious decision not to hire a video editor again. We could hire one. It wouldn't be a big problem. It's just that wasn't our focus. As incoming staff come in, it was mostly a full staff replacement this year. People's ambitions and ideas for the establishment change. It's the same in almost any organization that you see in the university.
I have Dan.
Just wondering, so if we wanted to send something in, do we have to like go through you and be like vetted or whatever to publish something, or do we just send you something? Do you have a format that you need it in, or?
Great question. So yeah, every Monday we have a volunteer meeting every Monday at 6:30 p.m. in our room 3112 in the south, or 312 in the south.
So what time and days?
6:30 p.m. on Mondays.
Monday.
That's the best time because all of our editors are there, and you can It's a group setting. There's free pizza every week. We usually get around 10 to 15 people, and we talk about what stories we'll do for the week. Yeah, we have recorded sections as I mentioned, news, arts, sports, and opinions. We also take on photographers. And if you ever have any ideas like that, that's the best time to come over. If you can't make it, then we have a list of editors on our website that you can contact, depending on what you're interested in expressing. And yeah, my email is always available, but you can talk to our other editors as well. For things like letters to the editor, would be my email. And yeah, as far as that was a question that was raised. As far as how we engage students, every paper we have an advertisement for when our meetings happen. We post on social media every week about coming over to volunteer, and we haven't noticed, we haven't had a problem attracting volunteers this year, so it hasn't been a big initiative, but we're out there engaging every week.
I have Christina's.
Hi. If the society is looking to possibly get maybe an event or something they're doing covered, is there an email that would be specific for them to send it, or would they come to the meeting?
Yeah, coming to the meeting is one option. We have an events page on our website, which we haven't collected. The best thing to do is probably to email myself directly, because then I can just sort of sort it through to the right section. Yeah, we can promote any society event basically through our social media accounts, which have a pretty good following. We can also write about events as previews or as recaps.
Awesome, thank you.
John.
Yeah, just a comment. I thought that your coverage of the child dentistry issue has been excellent. I read one of your long pieces. I thought they're quite good. So I just want to give you a compliment on that. And more of a request, I would like to see more coverage of the intergovernment, specifically around the memorandum of understanding. I thought that's been a little thin, to be totally honest.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. We haven't engaged much with provincial politics simply because that's not something that volunteers have come forward to us directly with. And then in our editorial meetings, that's not a topic that came up. You're right that it's very important. Governments that set budgets that massively influence the university, huge topic. Something we've been thinking about this year is we would like to branch out more of that. Focusing just on student politics is a pretty narrow scope as far as our political writing goes. So you're right, that's definitely a great suggestion. We are covering the Day of Action, which I would recommend everyone be interested in, quite heavily in our issue.
Any more questions for Jesse? Yes, sir.
Just for our benefit, like, so what new things have you tried with the paper or the website this year? Like, what really worked for you? What pieces were like, what new formats were covered?
We have been focusing a lot on online content this year. Big benefit of that is that you can write as much as you want. And we've had some stories that are quite long online exclusively. We had a couple issues with staffing earlier in the year. So this year, I think only one returning staff member came back. We had a staff of 13, and only one was returning. Or sorry, 2 of us were returning. And that led to September and October mostly being rebuilding months and focusing on our plans ahead. As far as what we've been innovating, we've had more coverage at the DSU this year. More local coverage. Last year we ran more art stories that were sort of reviews of books that are being published nationwide, or just focusing on local pop culture. This year we really scaled it down. Our art section is almost all locally artists. Students at Dow. We're realizing that our specialty can be covered like super local niche events, breaking news, things that other media outlets aren't getting.
Any more questions for Jesse? There are maybe 3 more minutes allowed.
Okay. I apologize if I concerned anyone by not speaking more to the operations of the paper specifically. Again, if anyone has any questions, I would totally suggest that you reach out. I'm really interested in always talking to see what input people have. But yeah, I'm concerned that, Dylan, I think you said earlier that I came here to criticize the DSU, which isn't my intention at all. I really hope it doesn't come off that way. I didn't come here thinking like, oh, this is going to be fun and smart. I'm just concerned because I think the union has a super powerful reach, and it could be, the communication could be a little better. Like we're voting tonight on a motion for the equity policy, and like, yeah, student solidarity and more inclusivity and taking a solid stance on that, I think that's awesome. But like, students wouldn't know about that unless the counselors directly approached them about it, because it wasn't posted online at all, hasn't been advertised at all. And I'm not sure how many counselors would have shared that motion. Maybe all of them, that's awesome. But
I did.
Does anyone have any questions for Jesse? Yes, sure.
Clarification, that you get table, we discussed, we didn't know that wasn't happening.
okay, I just showed up a little late.
Yeah, that's.
Thanks.
Sure.
Cool. Unless anyone has any questions, I can go first.
Thanks so much.
Thanks so much.
I also just wanted to make a clarification that the DSU agenda is posted on our website, so everyone did have access to all of that.
It was posted yesterday, I noticed, but there's no social media push to have people read that coming from the union, when it could just be a helpful little reminder to students that these meetings are always happening, that the agenda does get put out before every meeting, if they want to read it. I don't know how well your average Saudi student knows about that.
Thank you, Jesse. Before we move on to the next presentation, it appears as if we have a counselor who's having a bit of trouble trying to get into the building. Does anyone know if like the doors are locked?
Yeah, I'll go down.
It's fastened.
Yeah.
Well, the main board was.
Oh, great. Hello. Hello. I just got your email. Like I literally just got your email. Just kept going. All right, so let's move on to the next presentation. It's my understanding that Naomi Vitalik is not here. That's okay. I would have liked to see her here because I think she's great, but I mean, it's good that we're having this presentation. So let me just pull it up here.
I personally think Sarah is really great.
Oh, Sarah is great. I know Naomi just through like the law school. So thanks very much for bringing this to our attention. Did you want to be able to like move things here, or do you want me to click along as you see? Okay, perfect. So, like I said, you'll have no more than 15 minutes, and then we'll have opportunity for questions.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah Slauson. I'm originally from the Wissagushamig Law First Nation. That's in Quebec. It's borderline on the border to Hamilton, New Brunswick. Right now, I'm the Native Post-Secondary Liaison here on Dalhousie campus. It's funded by the Confederacy of Native It's basically an Aboriginal resource center for students. And I guess my most important job is I have 2 children. And I am in the nurses program health promotion. So I guess we'll just get started. So like I said, this is Naomi's presentation. She made it, but like I said, she's also from Wissagushamig. So we've known each other for a really long time, and she said to take it and kind of just present. So, so I'm just gonna get right into it. So most of this you guys all got in your email, so I'll kind of go through it pretty quick. So there's 24,175 people with Aboriginal identity in Nova Scotia. That's an increase of 42% since 2001. Aboriginal people make up 2.7% of the total population of Nova Scotia. That's the largest minority group in Nova Scotia, and there are 14,958 status and registered to Nova Scotia bands. And then we have here a picture of the 13 bands in Nova Scotia. A lot of those names now they're back to their traditional names, but some of them you can see there too, like Buckingham and Waitagama. So those are. Go to the next one. So this is true or false. And so when Europeans first arrived in North America, they conquered the Aboriginal people through war. I guess. False. I'm here. False. The first 250 years of interaction between Aboriginal people and European settlers was characterized as by reliance, mutual respect, and recognition. So the early relations, the Europeans relied on the Aboriginal people to survive at the time and become familiar with food resources. They were trading partners, they were military allies, And the Royal Proclamation of 1763 came out at that time, and that was to set out guidelines for Europeans on settlement of Aboriginal territories. Aboriginal title has existed and continues to exist. So here on the East Coast, we have peace and friendship treaties. Europeans recognize Aboriginal people's laws and customs and rights to land. Aboriginal people saw as a distinct nation in British Columbia treaties on this basis, and later become the number treaties, and those are the treaties that you would see out west. So there's a change in dynamic 1850s onward. 4 factors. There's a demographic shift. The non-Aboriginal, so the settlers, European settlers, started to outnumber the Aboriginal people. The death of the fur trade and focus on resource-based economy, so they no longer needed the Aboriginal people as much because they didn't need the fur anymore. Change from objective of exploration to settlement, and the ideology of superiority. I always have a question with that word. Civilized and savages. So consequently, Aboriginal people began to be viewed as the Indian problem. The solution to the Indian problem was assimilation. I want to get rid of the Indian problem. I do not think, as a matter of fact, that this country ought to continuously protect a class of people who are able to stand alone. Our object is to continue until there is not a single Indian in Canada that has not been absorbed into the body politic, and there is no Indian question and no Indian department. So that was Johnston Campbell Scott. He was Deputy Minister of the Indian Department in 1929. So the Indian Act was used to discriminate against First Nations in many ways. So it abolished traditional forms of Aboriginal governance, 1869 onwards. It began to criminalize spiritual practices and ceremonies, that's traditional Aboriginal ceremonies, so powwows, sweats, any kinds of things like that. Criminalize the practice of traditional substance activities. And in the prairie provinces, sales of crops and livestock offers are not permitted unless approved by Minister 1886 forward. More examples of the discrimination under the Indian Act is the residential Indian school system. That one from 1968. Theirs is 1980, but it's 1996 the last residential school closed, and some of you may have heard in the last few years a lot of the bad things that came out of the residential school. A lot of the children were abused and physically, emotionally, sexually. So there's a lot of intergenerational effects from residential schools, and residential schools could be maybe like my grandmother kind of thing, but she was not in it, but lived in that era, so just like a generation, 2 generations ago. And the Indian Act also controlled It controls who can be an Indian. 1868 to still today controls who can be an Indian. Voluntary entrenched is a means for Indians of good character as determined by a board of non-Aboriginal examiners to be declared non-Indian. So they basically want to assimilate if they were shown to be of good character, they could decide that they did not want to be Native anymore. Compulsory enfranchisement, that's 1876 to 1951. That's automatic loss of status if you became a doctor, a lawyer, a priest, a nun, got any type of university degree, or traveled outside of Canada for over 5 years without permission of minister. So there's more. Standing passing through male line only up until 1985. So if a Native woman married a non-Native man, she lost her status, and her children also lost their status. But the reverse, if a Native man married a non-Native woman, she would get status, and the children would get status. Illegitimate children could lose status if the registrar is satisfied that the father of the child was not an Indian. The double mother rule, a person who would lose status if a mother and maternal grandmother had no Indian ancestry. So I'm going to kind of, let's see. Okay. So between 1926 and 1951, it was illegal for First Nations to hire a lawyer. Post-World War II, revulsion to Nazi treatment of Jews led to changes in treatment of minorities around the world. UN Declaration of Human Rights in 1948, and the adoption of human rights codes in Canada in 1960s, and the Canada Bill of Rights. So the white paper was proposed by Pierre Trudeau in 1969. Was the proposed elimination of the Indian Act and all that remained of the special relationship between Aboriginal people and Canada. Aboriginal people reacted with strong resistance. They saw this as a form of imposed equality as a coffin for their collective identities, the end of their existence as a distinct people. And national Aboriginal organizations created as a result results in greater advocacy for collective rights. So I'm just going to read the Section 35 of the Constitution Act 1982, recognizing the firm's Aboriginal and treaty rights. So litigation, the promise of Section 35 the Supreme Court of Canada has said is to recognize the fact that prior to the arrival of Europeans in North America, the land was already occupied by distinctive Aboriginal societies, and to reconcile that fact with the assertion of Crown sovereignty over Canadian territory. So key cases, I guess maybe one that you guys might have heard was the Marshall 1999, the recognition of Mi'kmaq treaty rights to hunt and fish for a moderate livelihood. Neglect this continues right now in First Nations communities. First Nations are often the political hot potato because we are federal, like the money comes from the federal government, it's not the province, so sometimes it gets kind of messy in terms of schooling and things like that, and going to the hospital, who's going to pay kind of thing. Is it the province or is it the federal government? So results in a lot of legislative gaps on reserve. Underfunding in programs on reserve, like child welfare, education, I think is 33% underfunded compared to outside of the reserve. Health services and housing. So this is just some quick stats. Aboriginal people are 3 times more likely than non-Aboriginal to be victims of violent crimes. They represent only 3.8% of the population. They account for 18% of those incarcerated in federal institutions. Only 8% of Aboriginal people aged 25 to 34 have a university degree compared to 28% of all Canadians. 24% of Aboriginal people under 25 able to converse in the Aboriginal language. 1 in 4 First Nation children live in poverty. Diabetes among First Nations people is at least 3 times the national average. 23% of Aboriginal people live in houses in need of major repair, compared to just 7% of the non-Aboriginal population. There are more than 100 First Nation communities under water boil advisories. High school graduation rates for First Nation youth are half the Canadian rate. There are more First Nation children in foster care than there were in residential schools, and these schools were at their height. And First Nations youth commit suicide at 5 to 8 times the Canadian rate. This is just yeah. Well, so I don't know if you guys have any questions. I know it's really quick and.
Sarah, are there any questions? No questions for Sarah? Yes, Jeffrey?
So why did you include the barter patch tree card at? I mean, that could be really useful for us to kind of learn a bit more about. There was the Briar Patch magazine, the treaty card ad.
Yeah, okay, so if you want me to, I could read that, like I said, this is Naomi's presentation, but yeah, similar treaty card, so you can't live here without us, basically. I think it's kind of a joke. So like, if you go to the next slide, it kind of tells you what the membership entitles the card holder, share this territory except reserves and First Nations. It's kind of like we are all treaty people, because even though, we in this room did not sign treaties, our ancestors did, and in keeping with the treaties, we are still all treaty people. So we both have to kind of uphold our ends of the treaties. So, do you want me to reading it, or?
No, that was great.
Okay.
I just wanted to have it reiterated. I'm really grateful.
Yeah.
Any more questions for Sarah? Yes, Michael?
So that's my question, just to make a point on the treaty card. We are all treaty people, but only First Nations are required to carry that ID on them. And they can be removed from this country without it. There are situations, they would, if they cannot prove their status, there have been cases in different, I know there was a guy in Escazone that had to prove that he belonged to Escazone because he lost his ID and stuff like that. So it's not like, yes, we have passports and stuff when we travel, but First Nations are also put through the extra grill of, okay, so you're First Nations, but you must prove that you belong to this part of land and this part of the country.
I have a question for you, Bill.
So the land we're on right now, has it been ceded?
Unceded Mi'kmaq territory.
Any more questions for Sarah?
There's about 12 minutes allotted, so.
But can you clarify, so in case some people don't understand, I'm not saying that not everybody does, but just in case, what it means by being unseated? By the fact of the land.
Was it never sold or was never given
No,
up?
but this clarification of Dylan, I guess to follow up on what Dylan just asked you, about whose land we are actually setting on.
Rigmarole?
Yeah, like, so just a clarification.
I don't know where you're going with this. Just take the way you say it.
No, just the clarification of like, what the difference is seated, unseated, and what that part of the like, where this land, and the fact that it's never given up.
So you want me to repeat that or?
Yeah, you go ahead.
Just say it louder.
No, I was just, the clarification I was asking, just the difference between seated and unseated, and the fact that this land was never given up by the Mi'kmaq. So it just sort of just, magically became not theirs. So, that was only my clarification on seated and unseated.
I think your point is that it was never sold and never,
Yeah, that's it.
never given up in war.
That's correct.
Yeah. Any more? Yes, Joe.
Yeah, there's a myth that a lot of people believe that First Nations and Indigenous people get free education. No, that's not true. That's something we can speak a bit to the.
It's not true across the board, but it is true. It depends on your community. So it depends on how much money you get from the federal government that goes to the community for education. Like my school is paid for, and a lot of people, if you're from reserve in your status, for the most part, your school is paid for. But like I said, like when I showed you the numbers, you half of First Nations people are even graduating from high school, and only like 8% compared to 23% that have an undergraduate degree. So it's not like, and there's a lot of people that don't take advantage of that.
Is there enough funding for the people that want to go to school to get it?
Like I said, it depends on which community they're from, because every community runs their education programs differently. So some may have more money for education, or in some communities there's just less people applying. But you have to be. I think there's probably a way if you were status and if your band could not, it wasn't in the budget for them to fund you, you might be able to go to Indian Affairs. But I think for the most part you can't. You have to go through your own reserve.
Can I kind of piggyback on that? I know a good example of what you're asking. 2 years ago, there were several students here, First Nations, from different reserves around this part of Canada, one from out west. One could only get Ed funding for breakfast and modest accommodations, and actually had to go out for scholarships for some of the book club. Another one had full accommodations, full meals. So it depends. It just, as Sarah said, it depends totally on the reserves. You have to understand that some of the reserves are shrinking. The reserve, my Heritage Reserve is Bear River. It has 80 people that are status that belong to Bear River. So therefore, the funding you would get from the federal government is quite a lot smaller than what Eskazoni would get.
Yes, Dylan.
I think, yeah, and I don't know how much we're going into discussion here, but so there was that quote earlier on from the guy from 1929 saying, "I will not rest until there are no Indians that has not been absorbed into the body politic." So Michael had just referenced how some reserves are shrinking. I think we should be aware of colonialism and how it still persists today, and how we can maybe be aware of it.
Do you have a question?
Is there a way that we can be more aware of it?
Say it again? I think in the comment, I think.
Is it, so in your presentation, there was a quote earlier on about a minister of Indian Affairs who wanted to solve the Indian problem, and I see that as an act of colonialism. Is there a way that we can be more aware on our campus and maybe work contrary to that in a more positive way?
I think educating yourself on it, because like we're not, a lot of people, I mean, I myself was not educated on all these things until I came to university, and so unless you actively seek, I guess, what the true history of Canada is, you're not going to know, because if you learn in high school, or it's kind of the European kind of idea of history.
Any more questions for Sarah? Yes, Brent.
So I'm gonna look at more on what kind of average issues in front of Parliament right now, like bills or motions before the MPs. But in your opinion, like how has the Hartford government treated Aboriginal people in that period?
Very bad. It's taken away a lot of like programs. The National Aboriginal Health Organization cut programs there, cut funding to friendship centers across the country. I guess that's kind of, I mean, it's a bad thing, but it also made Aboriginal people more aware of the importance of voting in federal elections, because if you go to many communities, they don't vote in provincial or federal elections. They don't really see the need, or they don't really, because we have chiefs and council on reserve. So like if you live on reserve, you feel that that's how you're affected by what chief and council decide. So I think Stephen Harper coming in, everybody started to realize like of all the cuts, and I mean there's cuts to like our healthcare plans and cuts to education. There's cuts everywhere since Steve Harper's been there.
No, perfect.
Yeah, Michael.
This is more actually to the chair. Is there a way that the DSU can recognize on our website, a statement of some sort that we are on, and so when I know that when they do talks, and I'm saying that they usually start the talks with the fact, and they give reference to that is the amount of territory that we're on. Is there anything that we could have a statement put on our website to the statement of the fact that the DSU recognizes this?
Who runs the website? Yeah, Jim. Jim. You had a question here?
Or just to respond, there's been 2 statements passed in the past 2 years that were directly referencing that or vaguely.
I actually
Sorry, there's been 2 statements passed at DSU Council in the past 2 years. One acknowledging our existence on unceded Mi'kmaq territory, the other referencing that, but referring to its support for Idle No More. So those are things that we could
Yeah,
put on the website.
something like that, but I think actually we had something on the website that's there kind of semi-permanent, so that it's not, it's one thing to say in a council meeting or bring it up once, but just so something that is sort of a little bit more living testimony to the fact that the DSU does recognize this.
Any more questions for Sarah? Any more questions? Okay, thank you so much. So the pizza's here, so maybe we'll take a short break, 10 minutes. And we'll come back at the page. What's that?
I want it.
levy questions that were sent to RAMS by January 16th. So those come before council now. Does the motion have a second? Yes, Dan? Okay, so like I said, these are proposed referendum levy questions. It's council's mandate to refer them to the Board of Operations and the Elections Committee so that they can be vetted. And yeah, so let's just deal with them in order. The CKDU motion and so these are 5 separate motions. So we'll have to have them rewrite a seconder for each of them.
Can I suggest that talk to the motion?
CKDU, will I need to move it a seconder?
But for the whole thing,
Sure, okay.
I'm just suggesting that maybe we vote on this omnibus because they're gonna come back to us to vote anyways, they're just working out wording, am I correct?
So you want to have it moved on the omnibus?
Send all to be reviewed.
Okay, does the motion have a seconder? Caitlin, is there any discussion here? I mean, if we move omnibus, then I'm going to have to step down for the whole thing, which is fine, because we're voting on the Dow Legal Aid Society as well, which I worked those semesters, so I'd be in a conflict of interest. That's one of the reasons why it was.
Can we separate that one out?
Well, first we have to vote on the motion to combine all 5.
I didn't realize the issue there.
So is there any discussion on this? The motion is to combine all 5 motions. Yes, Dylan.
I'll speak against it because if we turn it down, then we can vote again on one that removes the Dow Legal Aid Service Society and therefore, yeah.
Is there any further discussion? Andrew and then Joe.
Just in response to Dylan's point, I feel like that would start taking longer for, so
Fair enough.
we'd negate the time of
Whatever
it.
counts.
John?
I'm gonna vote in favor of omnibusing because this is gonna come back to us anyway, regardless of which ones you said. It was just reviewing the questions to finalize them. So do you want to send each to the Board of Operations? That's an easy question for me. Yeah, sure. So just speed it up.
Is there any further discussion on the motion to combine the motions into one? Yes, Ben?
What are the disadvantages of omnibusing it?
Would anyone like, if no one, yes, Alan?
In general, it would mean that if there was anything that we didn't think it didn't make sense to send to the Board of Operations, we wouldn't be able to vote on that individually. Yeah. It's no problem.
Any further discussion? No further discussion on the motion to combine the 5 motions? Do you understand the question? So the question is whether, yes, Jamal?
So I'm really unsure of what this motion is going to do or not. But if we have this separated, say for example, if it's separated, so any councillor can have its own motion along with the main motion on each levy question, is that if it's separated? So if it's not separated, like, I don't know. Like,
I'd actually like Kaylee to speak to that, because I'm not sure, like, you're saying that it's the right of any member to.
An omnibus usually doesn't require, hi everyone, for folks who don't know, I'm the policy research coordinator for the DSU, and the resident Robert expert. So in an omnibus, it's a procedural thing, and when someone calls for an omnibus, any councillor has the right to remove an item that would be discussed separately. So what I was suggesting to Andrew is that if folks want to pull the legal aid question so that Andrew can deal with the other 4 together and that one is separately, then someone just has to call it out, and then it should just be pulled. I can find it.
I believe you. Does,
It is in there.
okay,
It doesn't need a second.
I understand. So does that answer your question, Jamal? No? You have another question?
so is it the time to call it out?
What would you like to call it?
I would like to call out CKDU and the Dalhousie Outdoor Society.
Outdoor?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have 3 as one
And
motion.
Actually, there's nothing left there.
Well, what do you want to pull out, Joe?
I would
Just vote against it.
So sorry, Jamel, what would you like to add?
CK,
You said CKDU.
I would
and the
like to
outdoors.
pull out number 1, 2, and 4.
So CKDU, Dow Legal Aid, and the Outdoor Society.
Correct.
So Kaylee, do we need to vote on that?
No.
No, okay. So, and we'll deal with them in order. But we still need to vote on the omnibus motion. So the motion before council is whether to combine 3 and 5. That would be Dow Out and Sunhouse. That's the motion essentially before council. Is there any discussion on that? Do you understand the question? The motion is to combine the vote on Dow Out and South House. All those in favor? All those opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Would anyone like their dissents or abstentions noted in the minutes? Okay, so we'll proceed in the order that was originally stipulated. So we'll start with CKDU. So I guess I should ask if, for a temperature check, if people would like the proposed referendum levy question read or not read. Red thumbs up, not red thumbs down. In my opinion, the people who do not want a red prevail. Does the motion have, would anyone like to move it? Dan, seconded by Brandon. Is there any discussion on referring to CKDU questions to the Board of Operations and the Elections Committee? Yes, Joe.
I think before referring it to the Board of Operations, I want to know what the BOPS is going to do, number 1. And I understand BOPS is going to look into the legalities and things like that, but does BOPS also look into whether there is a need for a levy increase? That's also another thing that I want to just know of what exactly the BOPS is going to do.
Ali.
Hi, everybody. I'm the chair of the Board of Operations. So it's not the board, our intentions as the board are not at all political. So that means if we don't make any value judgments based on whether there should be a levy or should not be, that is in fact, I believe, a decision for the student body overall to make. At BOPS, it's a basic level. It's just saying, is this a financially responsible thing, as well as helping to work with the wording specifically of the levy question. So for example, if there is wording that doesn't line up or doesn't make sense or isn't clear, that's what the Board of Ops would do to make sure that we don't end up passing levy questions that don't make any sense or aren't financially responsible, things like that. So that's what the Board of Operations does. Council then makes a preliminary decision of like whether it should go to levy, which is a little bit more political, but ultimately, I believe the intention is for students to vote on whether or not a levy increase is.
I have Rogan.
I also think that since the levy, like the decided asking for the levy would have obviously the most information on how much they're looking to increase it by. So the Board of Ops having the final say on that would almost take away the validity from them being able to do that, and they would be the best ones to know.
Yeah. And just so we're all clear, like, council votes to refer them to BOPS and the Elections Committee. BOPS reviews it, the Elections Committee reviews it, and it comes back to council on February 25th. Is that the timeline? So the final decision whether or not the questions go before the student body happened in council on February 25th. Jamal.
So correct me if I'm wrong, we do not have a proper documentation where the councillors know, like if there is a review around a society that's coming forward for a levy increase, if there is a review or something like that that says, okay, my fellow councillors, this is what's happening. So you have the right to vote now to bring it to the elections. Like I'm hoping, like I hope this is making a little bit of sense what I'm trying to say. It's not that I'm against referring into the BOPS. It's not against the BOPS. It's just trying to say that when it comes back to the council, the councillors need to know. Just voting a yes or no is not just going to make sense. Like the councillors need to know that if I'm going to pass this to the elections, is it going to be in a good, like is it going to be fair, or there is a need for having that? So there needs to be a review around that. And councillors really do not have anything in place that convinces the councillor whether we need it or we don't need it.
I have Dylan.
Just
reaffirming kind of what Ali had said earlier on, is that I don't think that it's the place of council to decide who gets to go to apply for a levy. It's up to the student body, right? So if a group of individuals comes to us and says, hey, we want to get levied, and then it goes to students can decide whether or not they think there's that need. It's up to the students, not up to us. That's kind of what it works.
Just to be clear, I mean, council on February 25th has a vote on whether to refer to the student body. So that could be a vote in favor or a vote against. I think it's worth clarifying council's role in this. I have Al.
Still under my point.
Pardon?
Still under my point.
Oh, Caitlin.
I was just going to add that it's also required to be 2/3 majority vote by council to go forward with a referendum or a plebiscite. So if council really does want that extra documentation from this group, then we can approach it.
Jamal?
So, yeah, thanks for clarifying that. So I just have a quick question. So if it's anyways the students who's going to decide whether there needs to be a levy increase for a society, then what's the point of Bob's clarifying it? Like, what's the point of having this motion right now? You're sending it to Bob's sending it back to the council, council sending it to levy question, sending it to the elections. If it's anyways being voted, like, you get what I'm saying, right?
The answer to that question is that it's contained in the Constitution.
I know, I understand. Sorry.
Yeah.
I understand that, but see, this is what I'm trying to say. There's no structure to it. Or maybe I may be wrong. Yeah. Sorry, I just forgot what I was about to say.
Do you have your hand, Aaron?
Just say that it is in the Constitution, but that I think this is something that comes up every year, and so it should be clarified eventually in the Constitution.
I have Dan.
I was just trying to save time by separating it out, and the reason for that was because the wording of these isn't finalized, so voting them in or out right now doesn't really make sense until the Board of Governors has made sure that whoever sent in this question actually knew their Board of Operations. Sorry.
Al?
Yeah, I just think that it's true, like, this process is a little bit inefficient, but that's something that we have to look at an AGM, so it's a constitutional amendment. At this point, I think probably the best way to move forward is to just send it to the Board of Ops, and it's almost like this never happened. So I would call the question, if that's okay.
You can't give yourself the last word. I see Kaylee.
I just want to clarify to council that the constitutional requirement is that these be referred before the value on them is voted on. So it's not just that you can or can't vote to refer them. It says council shall mandate the board and election committee to review referendum or plebiscite proposal in accordance with the Constitution. And shall is very clearly defined in the Constitution, and so this is purely a procedural matter, and that if council were to vote not to refer these, it would be violating this element of the Constitution.
I would agree with that. I see Rams.
Call the question.
Seconded by Brandon. Well, there's no one on the speakers list, so we'll move directly to a vote. The vote is whether to refer the CKU motion, the CKU proposed referendum levy question, seen here, to the Elections Committee and the Board of Operations. Do you understand the question? Do you have a point of order? No. Do you understand the question? All those in favor? All those opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. We'll move to the Dalhousie Legal Aid Society. Would someone like to move my incidental motion? Dan, seconded by Alex. Okay, so I work at Dell Legal Aid, and so I probably shouldn't be chairing this motion because I face a conflict of interest. It's not that there's anything nefarious about it, it's just that if a member of council is involved in the society, then they signed a statement of office, and that statement of office says that you have a fiduciary duty towards the student union. And if you're in a position where you might be in a conflict because you work with another society that's asking for a referendum levy increase, then you're in a conflict of interest. So I humbly ask you to allow me to step down and for Rams to sit and while we appoint an interim chair. So is there any further discussion on this? No discussion? Do you understand the question? Is anyone opposed to proceeding this manner? Go for it.
Oh yeah. So yes, at this point, I'd like to open up nominations for chair. So, interim chair, yes, just for this motion.
Doing that again.
Yeah. Yeah, so are there any nominations? Greg, Greg, anybody like to nominate Greg? Would like to, and Jenna, please second the nomination. So that's that. Any other nominations for chair, interim chair? Going once, any nominations for interim chair? Going twice, any nominations for chair? Going thrice, any nominations for interim chair? All right, I'd like to move. Yes, I'd like to please invite Greg. No. So this is the opportunity for Greg to give. How many people want to hear Greg give a speech? All right.
Pretty good speech.
Does anybody want to ask Greg any questions?
Yes.
Yes.
Are you a Dalhousie student in good standing?
Yes, I am. I'm a Dalhousie student in good standing. Yeah.
All right. At this point, I don't think there's any. Well, we should. Well, you have a bad information.
What's that?
We can go in camera to discuss it in private. Yeah, let's not do that. Okay, great. You're.
Thank you.
Hey, now you can clap, I guess, but it's too late.
Thanks, guys. So I guess we will move right on to Dalhousie Legal Aid Service Society motion. Is there a mover for the motion?
We already moved it.
Did we?
Oh, no. No, is there?
Okay, sure.
Daniel.
Daniel, second report. Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, and is there a speakers list? Does anyone want to speak the motion? Okay, yeah.
Motion to call a question.
No, Dominic.
Sounds good. Anyone opposed to calling the question? No, well, we're gonna move right to it anyways if there's no speakers list. All those in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Yeah, abstentions? You want that noted? No? Okay. Okay, motion passes. I will step back down, I guess. I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Am I not mistaken, Andrew? Yeah. Okay, thanks, guys.
I know.
The next question is on Dalhousie and South House combined. So does that have a mover? Dan, seconded by Scott. Any discussion? Oh, so would people, temperature check, would people like the Dalhousie referendum levy question read, yay, or not read? Thumbs down. In my opinion, people who don't want it to prevail. And what about South House? Yay or nay? Okay, in my opinion, the people who don't want to prevail. Is there any discussion on either of these motions? Yes or no?
Just a point of information. You pointed out that there could be a conflict. Is there anybody in the council who is working for any of these societies?
They should just abstain and have it no.
Yes, Ben? Oh, you're raising your hand.
Oh, no, I'm just saying.
Yes, Scott?
Is that a conflict of interest that he's Dalhousie rep?
Well, I assume that you're a member of the society.
Yes.
It's his decision whether he votes or not. I can't tell him. Is there any further discussion on the Dalhousie or the South House questions? So no one's spoken in opposition. Is anyone opposed to referring these to the Board of Operations and the Elections Committee? Okay, then they will be referred to the Board of Operations and the Elections Committee. Dalhousie Outdoor Society. Anyone like to move that? Dan, seconded by Andrew. Any discussion? Dalhousie Outdoor Society? Yes or no?
Just a quick comment. I have no idea what these new societies are going to do, and we are referring it to the Board of Operations.
I'm sorry. So temperature check. Would people like the proposed referendum levy question read? Thumbs up or not read? Thumbs down. Okay, in my opinion, those who don't want to prevail. Is anyone able to speak to Jamal's question? With the Dalhousie Outdoor Society? Kaylee?
This question in particular is going to be significantly reworked because their proposal is to become a type 1 society. There's a series of meetings happening in the next 2 weeks, and it's likely to be much different. But if any councillors have any questions about any of the proposals, they're welcome to come to the meeting.
Rebecca?
Information about every society is on private societies. Any councillor wants to read.
Is there any further discussion? Any questions anyone has? I mean, no one's spoken in opposition. Is anyone opposed to referring the Dalhousie Outreach Society proposed referendum levy question to the Board of Operations of the Elections Committee? Then it will be referred to the Board of Operations and the Elections Committee. And that concludes the 5 motions. So where are we in the agenda? I believe next is old business. Right, so let's go to 9A. All right, Peter. So the motion is to adopt various amendments to committee policy. Does the move by Rams? Does the motion have a seconder? Basima. So Rams, why don't you lead us through this the proposed changes to the committee policy? I'm just going to pull them up here. That one.
So yeah, this is the committee policy. Kelly was nice enough to include summary of changes, so I hope councillors had a chance to go through that.
I hope that everyone can see that, but that's probably not the case. I mean, is there a way for us to like? Yeah. All right. I won't interrupt you anymore, Rams.
So yes, I could go through the summary of changes sheet, but I mean, just to show of thumbs, like if people could get a chance to go through the summary of changes sheet. So no thumbs.
Yeah.
All right, that's good. So yeah. So basically, yeah, the changes are pretty straightforward. They will change committee policy to be a lot more efficient, especially around nominations and appointments for certain positions. But yeah, the changes are in front of you. Would people like me to go through it line by line? That's right. I can walk through the summary of changes policy, the document with folks and read it out line by line, but I don't know if that would help either.
Perhaps that's not how we should proceed, right?
Yeah, and if there's no other questions, actually, I would ask like if you have specific questions about the policy, I can perhaps answer them.
I want councillors to know what they're voting on.
Can I make an edit?
You can absolutely propose an amendment.
Programming Committee 1, there's no word at the end of the sentence.
Here, let's do this one. One D, no.
It's saying, it doesn't come up on our edits, it comes up there. Never mind.
Where was it, sorry?
Council doesn't show up on my computer, it's up there.
Well, that's a problem, right? What copy are people looking at? The Word or the, well, you have the PDF. Because the copy of the amendments that was submitted to the chair was the Word document. And so if the PDF document differs, then that might be a problem.
Does the word council exist in other people's PDFs?
So like, it speaks to the fact that council may not, what section was it again there, Scott, in programming?
1D.
1D? And so how does that differ from?
With the council on the next page, how that related is.
No, so this, there's a problem with the numbering here, right? These are the same sections. Non-council. Yeah, it's the same thing. Oh, I see. Or not, so that doesn't show up for some reason. Well, I don't know why that is. But you can rest assured, Scott, that like this is the one that's going to go up on the website. The Word's on. Thanks for bringing that to our attention. Is there any further discussion on this? This is the chance to make comments, suggestions, amendments, ask questions. Yes or no?
What's with the entertainment section? Campus entertainment committee.
Can we go down to that?
What page?
It's,
Radio.
Yes, it doesn't exist.
Are you sure it wasn't existing before?
No, it was always meant to be deleted.
Sorry?
It was always meant to be deleted after the committee policy.
I have Brandon.
So was that replaced with the Sexton Entertainment Director? Is that kind of where, because we have one of those, but we don't have a Sexton Entertainment Committee. So is that like, was the committee filled, the committee's purpose, was that filled with the directorship? Is that kind of?
No, I believe the Sexton Entertainment Director was given a seat on the Sexton Advisory Committee. Have you heard that?
On the advisory, so that's
Yeah.
one before.
So
I guess.
that's basically how it was amalgamated into one.
Okay.
Yeah,
This committee was divided in, it might be like a subsect of that Sexton Entertainment, or Sexton Advisory Committee, it might be like a subsect called the Entertainment Committee. I think that might depend on year to year. I think it has existed in the past. This year, I think it's somewhat unofficial, but it's not, it doesn't really exist. Yeah, I'm just saying no, so. So I think does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Jamel?
Yeah, I just have a quick question. Do you think having this committee makes sense, or you just think having it on the section advisory committee, including it in the advisory committee makes more sense, right?
As far as dues is concerned, the Sexton Entertainment Director has done a great job this year. Especially, there isn't that many things that specifically concern Sexton Entertainment versus like what dues does with their social VP and that kind of thing. It's difficult to know year to year how that would work, but I think if the if SAC decided that it was needed one year because the director wasn't doing as well, then we could implement it, but I think it's fine as it stands.
And I do like Danny's suggestion of just if there is a need one year to have a focused committee on Sexton Entertainment, then that could be structured in the Sexton Advisory Committee as a subcommittee. Sexton.
So is planning entertainment a mandate for the advisory committee? If it's not, then we can put that. Because at present, entertainment is not a mandate for the advisory committee. So if we are striking off entertainment committee, there is no one to organize entertainment in the section.
Sorry, let me scroll down. Yeah.
Would that not just be automatic based on the entertainment director being on the committee?
So you, sorry, so you mean to say the entertainment director will be planning everything?
No, in conjunction with the advisory.
That's what,
So can you look at the advisory committee for the reference, please?
That's this.
Anything below that? Matters relating to section campus but not limited to academic and internal issues. So yeah, we could add entertainment specifically in as a item E if you like to.
Is that what you're suggesting, Jamel?
I just want to refer this with engineering maps first before I make a motion.
I prefer to say programming versus entertainment.
So,
that's right.
Yeah.
So is it okay if we have a motion to add it to the campus section advisory committee, say that section advisory shall also
That's a good
programming of section campus.
So that would essentially, sorry, I just mean the adding of two words in line A. So tell me if this is what
Well,
you
it's, well, I guess there's no amendment yet, so what is it they want to do?
So motion to add words and programming at the end of the clause A. But now
So does that have a second?
Yeah, and section programming.
Brandon? Is that fine, Brandon? Okay. Cool. Any discussion on that amendment? Any further discussion, I suppose? Yes, Scott.
Why is Sexton in there? Saying Sexton campus including but not.
Oh, sorry, redundant.
Not necessary.
Thank you. So please, I would like to.
Let's expedite procedure. Any further discussion on this amendment? No one speaking in opposition. Is anyone opposed to adopting this amendment? Okay.
Okay, we will see what we adopted then. The floor is open on the community policies of all. Anyone have any questions, concerns, suggestions, amendments? Yes, Kate.
For the front page number 4, where it says, unless otherwise stated in the Constitution or policy, the chairs and or members of all standing committees shall be appointed by council at the, number 5. Unless otherwise stated in the Constitution or policy, committee vacancies shall be appointed by council at the meeting following the occurrence of the vacancy.
Yes.
I would like to change it to appointed by council at the meeting at least 1 week following the occurrence of the vacancy, and proper advertisement of the vacancy has been posted online.
At least 1 week. That's not a very good contrast there. There we go. At least 1 week following the occurrence of the vacancy.
And proper advertisement of the vacancy has been posted online or communicated. Thank you.
Has been posted online or communicated.
And communicated, sorry, to members of the union.
So, like that. Is the motion of a seconder? Christine? Yes, Michael?
Question on that, just, what is our proper length of time for, you're saying in a week, but how much time do we allow for that information to be out? So I think there might be a little more conflict there, because it's not a set time. And what negotiates the week?
Yes, Kate.
Just because instead of having, like, if a vacancy happens on the Sunday, we have a council meeting that Wednesday, the amendment as it stands, we would appoint that vacancy to fill it at that Wednesday council meeting with only 3 days to communicate that there is a vacancy available. The 1 week means that at least the council meeting following at least 1 week after the vacancy has occurred. So instead of it being that Wednesday's meeting we would appoint it at, it would be the 2 weeks after that, as long as it is at least 1 week after the vacancy has occurred. That way we can reach out to our constituents, post things online, make sure that everyone is aware of the vacancy.
Okay, but see, I understand what you're saying, but I'm saying the vagueness of the word 1 week.
Yeah.
To me, and so it should be a stated amount of time. So the fact that no one can say, well, are you giving constituents enough time to say, I want to fill that position? So you have, like, and we usually do have a statement of how much time that is. So we're saying a week, 7, are we giving it a 7-day period, or are we giving an amount of period so that we know that no one can come back at us and say there was not enough time for me to find it out. Did you post it yesterday? We build it today, right? So.
I see, Brandon.
Can we make an amendment then that it says like at least or a minimum of 5 school days? So that if like something were to happen with Monroe Day or a snow day, it's at least 5 school days. No weekends, school days.
So at least 5 school days, and I have to get creative in what's going on here. Is that motion of a seconder? You can't even see that. Is the motion of a seconder? Michael? I see William's hand. Do you wish to speak to the sub-amendment?
I have just a question about, I guess, the policy communications coordinator, the 5 days thing. What is the terminology that's used in other parts of this document?
It's a very good question.
It's different across policy. I just, maybe to address Michael's point though, it should be at least, it should still be at least a week. And then it should be, and proper advertisement of the vacancy has been posted online and communicated to members of the union for at least 5 school days.
Yeah.
So then we're dealing with both the posting and the meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Is that?
Could I make a suggestion then, that we just simply put this at the end? Okay, that's how you capture that phrase. Actually, no, it doesn't. No, it does not at all.
The only other point I would make is that many committees have to have council members on them, and it would be likely that you could appoint a counselor at a subsequent meeting and not need to post
But the thing is, if we are going to state that it is open, then we need to also cover the fact that we are allowing adequate time to post. So it's either going to maybe just be appointed by council, you know, ad hoc or whatever, or if we're going to say that it's going to be open, we have to put down a set time or a time period of posting or something that covers us for that amount. Because people will ask, what is your definition of confidence?
Yeah, I would just suggest that, that council might want to consider, an amendment that says that that posting would be for those committee positions that are not, for members of the union who are not members of council. Because many of the committees have members who have to be an executive member or a council member, and it may not make sense to have to post those online for 5 school days if only people around the table can be appointed.
It's
Rather
putting
than,
it in a different spirit, so that's two different things.
yeah,
Floor is open. Questions on the sub-amendment? So does everyone understand at least 5 school days versus 1 week? Yes, Cindy. Oh. So is there any further discussion on the sub-amendment? Do you understand the question? The question is whether to amend 1 week to read at least 5 school days, or at least 1 week to read at least 5 school days. So seeing as there's no further discussion, all those in favor? All those opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Would anyone like their dissents or abstentions noted in the minutes? Okay. So now the question is on the amendment. Is there any further discussion? Yes, Ben.
Point of clarification, what does proper advertising entail?
Anyone want to speak to that?
Well, it's a, honestly, like, Caitlin, I don't know if you want to answer that, but right now, it would just mean using the channels that we have, so social media, our jobs website, and that changes decade by decade, and I think that's the beauty of this policy, it'll be whatever's appropriate for that time. So, so right now, we have certain standard procedures that we resort to, our DSU jobs, our social media, our website.
I was just gonna say, it means, to me, proper advertising means like more than one form of advertising, so that's why I said online and communicate to members of the union, most likely via the counselors, so it's both like one-on-one, letting people know what's going on, online, on the website, just the 2 different methods instead of just, you know, posting Facebook status, and how that be done.
Is there any further discussion? Yes, Ben.
Could that be amended for further clarification?
Do you want to help me with the wording?
Can't really see.
Let me blow it up. That's as much as it's going to go.
Is using the word proper needed? Is the same message communicated without the word?
Are you suggesting to delete this word?
Yes.
Does the motion have a seconder? Michael? Is there any, so the question is on the sub-amendment. Is there any further discussion? Do you understand the question? The question is whether to delete the word proper. Is anyone opposed to proceeding that manner? Well, boom. Seconded by Michael. Right? The question is on the amendment. Any further discussion? That's nice. That's really nice. Did you do that?
Just take credit for it, yes.
Just say yes. Right. The question is on the amendment. Do you understand the question? The question is whether Section 5 of committee policy will be amended to provide that committee vacancies shall be appointed by council at the meeting at least 5 school days as opposed to a week following the occurrence of the vacancy, and advertisement of the vacancy has been posted online and communicated to members of the meeting. So, do you understand the question? All those in favor? All those opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Would anyone like their dissents or abstentions noted in the minutes? Did you have something you want to say on that, Caleb? Is that what you're holding your hand?
No, I just have more members out there.
Okay, so, sorry. So, yeah, you have the floor, Caitlin.
This one's a much smaller change. For the executive review committee section, I would like to change 1B and 1C to have, to read at least one additional member of council who is non-executive and at least one member of the union who is not a member of council.
Kaylee, is that good to go for one amendment?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because it's in the same spirit, really. Does the motion have a seconder? Brogan? So the question is on the amendment, whether to provide that in the ERC, instead of one member of council and one member of the union who's not a member of council to sit on the ERC, that at least one of each of those individuals sit on the committee. Is there any discussion? Would anyone like to speak in opposition to the motion? Is anyone opposed to adopting the amendment? Then it will be adopted. Colors. The floor is open. Yes, Caitlin.
For the facilities and improvement committee section, number 1, to say that this is hereby constituted a facilities improvement committee, hereinafter referred to as the committee, which shall consist of at least, and that lists all the members.
At least.
Where it says which shall consist of at least, and then,
So you want to add the words at least.
yes.
So your intent is to what?
So that if more than one member from Stelly campus and more than one member from the other campuses want to join the committee, they can. I think facilities improvement committee is a good way for students to get involved in.
Okay, perhaps we should put at least here instead.
Okay.
In front of each of these, just to avoid confusion with respect to the other sections, the other members of the committee. So let me just get this right. Ugh. Does the motion have a seconder? Jamal, any discussion on the amendment? Yes, Dan.
Just wondering, like, if there's a scale issue there because there's one non-voting, the director, there's a non-voting members as well. So so at least, so let's say there's 10 from Sexton, do we get 10 votes? I'm okay with that. But maybe not the other way. Run it out there, so that might be an issue.
That would come within the scope of the amendment. Like that would be allowed by the scope of the amendment. You're quite right.
Yes, may have been in the last one.
Is there a chair of this committee?
The VPFO.
So wouldn't it be up to the chair's like discretion how many people they allow?
No, it's up to council. Would anyone else like to speak to the amendment? Yes, Jamal.
Can I ask the chair what was he expecting with this committee and having these members involved so that the councillors have a sense of what are they expecting from this committee?
Me? The chair of the committee?
So I think I'm doing this for 3 consecutive meetings. So facility improvement committee deals with, we have a budget line, as you can see. Each full-time students pay $4.25 and part-time student $1 per term. And that money went into board and we use that money to improve any kind of improvement in student building and other places, students and places around the campus. So previously, until last meeting, December 3rd meeting when the committee was formed, the executives and the staff made the decision of priority which project is to be taken care of. But now we have a committee, and I'm happy if there is more members in the committee, but sometimes logistically it might be difficult to handle a big committee. It doesn't guarantee that it will be a big committee, and I'm happy to hear many voices, but not necessarily needed inside the committee. Maybe students outside the committee and the council can express their opinion to the committee member, and that can be brought in the table. So I'm okay with the previous format, but if the council decides, it can add at least.
Michael?
Okay, for the opening line, should we not say at least one voting member, and so then you put the word voting in, because that's only one vote. Which gives it back to the spirit of the actual setup where it was considered only be one vote.
So you want there to be one voting member for each of the 3 campuses, and then any additional members from those campuses to be non-voting?
If you listed there, it's at least one voting member, so that way they would not, you at least have the original vote, but it gets rid of anybody like having 10 votes from one campus.
I don't know if that wording would achieve what your purpose is. I think.
I have an amendment that will achieve that.
Yes, John?
So instead of saying at least one from each of the campuses, just add a clause G, additional non-voting members at the discretion of the committee.
I guess that would be I. Dan was kind enough to point out that there was 2 E's and 2 F's here, so I just quickly re-lettered this. So you want John, for there to be
additional non-voting members may be added at the discretion of the committee.
Any additional non-voting members who may be added at the discretion of the committee. So, I mean, Kaylee, is this, how does that affect the amendment?
It fulfills the spirit of the amendment, and it makes things.
Kaylee.
I'm sorry.
So the, it's out of the scope of the amendment.
It's okay, Kaylee.
So what I would suggest is that if people like John's amendment, that they should vote down Taylor's amendment and then vote for John.
So, I mean, I guess I should properly ask if there's a seconder for John's amendment. Dan, and then I'll rule it out of order because it's not within the scope of the amendment. Sorry, John. Did everyone understand what Kaylee said? So the question is on the amendment, which expands the number of members of the union from each of these 3 campuses from 1 to at least 1. Is there any further discussion? Do you understand the question? All those in favor? All those opposed? Any abstentions? The motion does not carry. Would anyone like their assents or abstentions noted in the minutes? John, I take it you want to move something?
Yes, I do. So, item H, any additional non-voting members may be added to the committee, so may be added at the discretion of the committee.
Sorry. I got it.
No, it's.
That's so hard.
Additional non-voting members who may be added at the discretion of the committee.
Can we also add or council again? Or is that almost given?
That, so does everyone understand that the discretion of the committee means like the consensus or the vote of the committee? Right? Like if everyone agrees with the committee or they have a vote to add a member, then that is what sub I says. So if you're satisfied with that wording, John, I'll ask if there's a seconder. Michael. Okay, so the question is on the amendment. Is there any further discussion? Do you understand the question? Does anyone, no one's speaking in opposition. Is anyone opposed to adopting the amendment? Then the amendment will be adopted. Floor is open. The question is on the motion as a whole. Are there any further comments, suggestions? Yes, Caitlin?
Very small change. Program committee, 1D, there's no word council on the end, so it just says
Right.
fewer non-members.
I think Scott brought that up earlier. And
Okay.
it's a unfortunately, it's a discrepancy between the Word document and the PDF document, which is my responsibility. But I can assure councilors that the Word document was the one that was sent to the chair, and that will be the one that goes on the website as the official policy. So the floor remains open. The question is on the motion. No further discussion. So the question is on the motion. How many amendments have there been? It's worth to summarize them. So in section 5, we provided that instead of committee vacancies being appointed by council at the meeting following the occurrence of the vacancy, we provided that at least 5 school days after the vacancy, and after advertisement of the vacancy has been posted online and communicated to members of the union, is when council has to appoint people to fill the vacancy. What else? I guess we amended ERC to provide that at least one council member and at least one member of the union who's not a council member can sit on the committee. And then we amended facilities improvement committee to provide for that clause to allow the committee to add non-voting members at its discretion. And then, is that it? No, we added that portion about in the program in the Sexton Advisory Committee to add that they are also to be concerned about the entertainment and programming on campus. So the question is on the motion. Do you understand the question? All those in favor? All those opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Would anyone like the dissents or abstentions noted in the minutes? Okay, that's committee policy. Let's move on to facility ops policy. And Rams, I will hand it over to you.
So facilities operations policy has been really scaled back because it dealt with things that it shouldn't have been dealing with. So as you notice, it's much more lean. A lot more things have been removed from it. It's all listed in the summary of change document. I can go through that with folks if they like. Or we can just do the same process as we did committee policy and you can just suggest any amendments.
I mean, I wouldn't mind if councillors know what they're voting on.
Trying to put it through that. Anybody have any changes? Sorry, I can't put changes on the computer.
I've got them here.
Perfect. Don't put that on the chair.
Nope, that's not it. Okay. I've got them right here, right?
All right. So all those sections have been removed because they were unnecessarily specific. All is supposed to be high level. Instead, these sections will be added to a facilities operations manual that Kaylee's working on with our facilities director, as that can be amended easily. That can be amended, as needed, and it can deal with specifics such as dress code and emergencies. These are the things that are in our high level council policy. Emergencies is redundant because we're supposed to comply with law to deal with emergencies anyway. So as that in our policy. Same thing with alcohol, smoking, and legal substances in these facilities. We're copying and pasting the province's laws into our council policy, which is redundant. Hence, it's all these things are highly necessary, and the things that that are necessary can be put into facilities operations policy, manual. Yes.
The floor is open to any questions, suggestions, comments, amendments. No discussions? Does no one wish to speak in opposition to the motion? No, there's not, but I guess I have to ask for a second. Brandon, thank you. Does no one wish to speak in opposition to the motion? Thanks. Is anyone opposed to adopting the motion? Then the motion will be adopted. It was easy. And now the question is on amendments to the duty rules and procedures policy. Does the motion have a seconder? Jacqueline? Okay, Rams, why don't you take us through this?
So yes, this policy represents a multitude of changes that are recommended by our chair, our former policy person, and our current policy person, Kaylee. And if you want to put the summary change, I can go through that.
Sure.
So there were a lot of gaps in the policy, for instance, around agenda items, around deadlines, around the structure of the agenda, around when a report's due and report approval process, these things have been removed, these things have been reworded. So, like things like, for example, anything from, allowing nominees to choose any member of the union to act as a scrutineer, including councillors, these are the things that change. So it's basically just making things easier, especially around the process to rescind or reconsider motion. I can't tell you what the practical effects of all of these will be, only because they're so extensive. But hopefully, our council meetings will run a lot more smoothly from now on. So see, the biggest change is also H, changing the motion to postpone from requiring 2/3 of members present to 1/3 majority, which means present and voting. So it's a very technical change, but it does make things a bit more simpler when we were caught in this conundrum.
So these are quite some substantial amendments. Is there any discussion? So anyone? Yes, Michael.
So the speaking at council and visitors to council, D, so that is a new thing that
For D.
the antenna.
So what this is, so policy now says that if you want to move the camera, you need a 2/3 vote. But the amendment, and that the motion is not debatable.
Okay, is that at our meetings?
Yes, that's current.
I
And
thought that actually we couldn't move the camera was meeting instead.
no. The 4D provides that that council can move in camera with a 2/3 vote. But the amendment would provide that you need a simple majority and that the motion is debated. So whereas before, if you want to move the camera, you can't actually debate it. Now you would be able to debate it.
Okay,
It's a good question. Anyone have any other? Yes, Caitlin, you're putting your hand up.
I was gonna say, for 6 minutes and roll call, with A.
Sorry.
Under minutes and roll call, 6A.
6A.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it says that copies of minutes of each council, including the roll call and supplemental materials for all ex-camera agenda items, will be made available to all members of the union within a limited reasonable period after the approval of the minutes by council.
Yes.
Can we specify that period by saying 3 days, 72 hours?
You can make a suggestion there.
Can we discuss like that before anyone actually puts out a motion, and then we don't have to like keep voting and changes and stuff? Is that?
Well, I mean, Caitlin's entitled to move it, and she's prescribed a period of 72 hours. I mean, but before it's seconded, any councillor can make a suggestion. But I think the wording that you're suggesting, Caitlin, is that within 72 hours, right?
Of them being approved at the council meeting.
After the approval from the council. So is that what you're getting at?
Yes.
Does the motion have a seconder?
So the second, yes.
I don't see that it does. Okay. This is instructive. If the motion doesn't have a seconder, then it doesn't go forward. So the floor remains open. Chris, thank you. Oh, sorry. What happens now, Kaylee? Kaylee?
Yeah, I'm right here.
So I asked for a seconder. No one said it, but then someone seconded the motion after like I said the floor is closed, essentially. What happens? And no other business interview.
Well, it's had a seconder, so.
Okay.
Unless someone's going for
The table was closed.
I said I don't see that it has a seconder.
Well, if you think that I call for an order.
Point of order. You called it over.
Yeah. So I think that has merit.
Great, tell them.
Pardon?
Tell them.
Yep. Okay. So the floor remains open.
Do we think? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Do we think 3 days is enough? Like, does anyone have any other suggestions for that? I was trying to save time. I don't think it is anymore. Sorry.
I'm not sure why your recent point of order is suggesting the second was out of order when you actually want to talk about the motion. Like, I mean, I'm supposed to be the guy that worries about procedure here. So the floor is open on amendments to the union rules as a whole. Does anyone have any questions or comments, suggestions, amendments? Yes, William.
Is a 3-day period reasonable considering the current operations and procedures of the DSU?
I'm going to say no.
motion to make it 5?
Do you have clarification on that?
Would anyone else like to respond to William's question? If not, then I'll recognize Ranz's motion.
Yeah, 5 business days for school.
Does the motion have a seconder? Within 5 school days. Any discussion on the amendment?
Point
Yes.
of information.
Yeah.
What does it mean that it will be made available to all members of the union? Does that mean that counselors have to send it out to their constituents, or will it be posted online?
Online. Yep. Online. The question is on the amendment. Is there any further discussion? Do you understand the question? All those in favor? Keep your hands up. All those opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Would anyone like their dissents or abstentions over the minutes? Okay. Yes, Mike.
An extra odd then, not because of how you put that in.
Thanks, that's fine.
That's just,
Thank you. Yeah. That's fine. So the floor is open. Any further questions, comments, suggestions, or amendments to the community rules?
We see the agenda portion. I see the agenda portion.
Yeah.
Sorry. Can we discuss it for a second before I motion something, or is that not how it works?
I'd rather you move something if you want to discuss it.
Motion to move executive reports to.
Unless Caitlin has a suggestion to move it on moderated caucus, that's correct.
I was gonna say motion for a moderated caucus.
Well, I think that's the chair's discretion, so that's, and thank you for reminding me. So you want to talk about exec reports, so we want to talk about it. Right?
I want to talk about the order in which the agenda is structured.
Okay, let's have a conversation about that.
Because I think it would be helpful.
Go ahead.
I can speak first.
Yeah,
Okay, so the exec reports are important and they're sent out and we read them and we can contact the exec at any point. And I think that maybe that can be moved to the later for people that can't attend the whole meeting. They've already read it and if they need to go back, but there's more important things to get through that that actually are voting positions. I understand why presentations are at the beginning so that out of council members can come into the meeting and not have to sit through the whole thing and wait when they're starting. I'm suggesting that maybe we move the executive reports to the end after old business.
I guess it would be after new business.
Oh, yes, after new business. Sorry. It's like, that doesn't seem like the whole list.
Yeah, no, it's not.
No, that's what I would be motioning. We're not talking about it anymore.
You want to move that?
No.
So
I want
is
people
there any-
to put out their opinions on what they think of that.
Yeah, so this is a discussion about the order of the agenda. If anyone has any thoughts, Andrew?
I think it's a great idea. That's all I have.
Anyone else with thoughts?
I was just wondering, in conjunction with that, if we can move presentations to be after appointments by council?
What the thoughts on that?
Yeah, the opposite of the thoughts.
Are you moving that?
No.
It's worth asking
Yeah.
for a finish. Okay. Anyone else with any thoughts?
I'm just wondering what the exact, if they feel that they need that time to get information to us, or what their thoughts are on it. The current exec, moving the exec reports to after new business, right? Yeah. What we did today, pretty much. Moving the presentations up. Do you think that's makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Michael?
Just on the talk on moving the presentations. To move the presentations, you sit down after announcements. Is that what you kind of suggested?
After appointments. So it would be,
Okay, appointments, the presentation, never mind then.
Anyone else have any thoughts, Brooke?
I just think it's a good idea to move presentations up because a lot of them are done by council members and they have to sit through hours sometimes. So.
Yeah.
I'd like to propose a motion to move presentations up to wherever we've been talking about it.
After appointments by council.
Yeah. And should I put these together or no?
Let's do it separately.
Okay.
So, and I'll re-letter this later. So does the motion have a second? Caleb. So, I mean, any further discussion? So the question is whether to move in the order of council meetings, presentations to right after appointments, instead of its current position of right after committee work. Does anyone wish to speak in opposition? Do you understand the question? Is anyone opposed to adopting the amendment? Then the amendment will be adopted. Dan?
Motion to move business of the executive to after executive report, sorry, at the moment, that's what it says, to after new business.
Right.
New business.
Cool. And I'll re-letter this later. So does the motion have a second? Brandon? Any further discussion? Does anyone wish to speak in opposition to the motion? Is anyone opposed to adopting the amendment? Then the amendment will be adopted. So the question is on the motion. Are there any further questions, comments, suggestions, amendments? No further discussion? Yes, William.
Just a question about the.
Speak up.
Sorry, a question about the committee reports, just to make sure I understand correctly. Committee reports were more defined within the committee policy as we've asked today.
I'm not sure I heard you correct. Heard you fully.
And under reports, there's mentions of committee reports. I'd just like to make sure that those were further defined within the changes to committee policy.
Right. I see what your question is. Who can speak to that?
Taylor, are you able to speak to that?
Yeah, the committees have to report by the end of their term, so that's outlined in the, or based on other requirements that depending on the committee. But also it might be the case that there is a ad hoc.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that those were the definitions.
Yeah, so they shouldn't, it wouldn't make sense for them to be here because we wanted to make some changes.
Did you have your hand, Amelia? No? Or was it Caleb?
I was just gonna answer that as well by saying that in committee policy, it also says that the chair of a committee can send their minutes to VPI and post online.
Okay. So the floor is open. Are there any further questions, comments, suggestions, or amendments to the changes to the org?
Sorry, let's see that.
Which is way out of clarification.
The minutes of all meetings of the union committee shall be filed by the chair of each committee within 1 week of the minutes being approved. The vice president internal, it doesn't actually say anything after that. But you send it to the vice president internal essentially, and then there's another section right after it that says, the chair of each committee shall present a written report detailing the activities of the committee and any recommendations the committee wishes to make no later than the expiration of the committee's term of office or the completion of the committee's tasks.
Thank you. So the floor is open. Any further comments, suggestions, questions, amendments to the union rules? No further discussion? Okay. It's worth repeating the amendments. So for the amendments that council's made, we moved around the agenda a bit to move executives at the end and put presentations after appointments. And I think that's all we did. Oh, no, yeah, we said that the minutes have to be posted 5 school days after they're approved by council. I think that's all we did. And everyone else has the summary of the of Rams's amendments. So do you understand the question? All those in favor? All those opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Would anyone like their dissents or abstentions noted in the minutes? Okay. The next item on the agenda, I believe, is, where'd it go? Where are we at? 10B? 10B?
9D.
9D? Right. Okay, so this is the motion that was tabled from the last meeting to review referendum mandated living societies. It's already been seconded. I won't ask if you want it read again. I would invite Jamel to lead off the discussion on this motion, however.
Thanks, Andrew. With the Dali's presentation of making me really famous, I just want to clarify myself. I am not against any society. So please do not have this misunderstanding that this is what I'm trying to do against a society. It is just to have proper structure to the process, the way we work. So please try to understand that, and I'm really open to any questions if you folks have around this. With my motion coming forward to the table, I know most of you are already aware with all the points that I made in the previous council meeting, so I don't want to take much time on explaining each of the points in detail, but I will highlight the main points why I feel the motion needs to be passed. This motion is around referendum mandated levy societies, and there was a little bit of confusion. Probably I will read up with Jen again and find out the confusion about referendum mandated levy societies, and there is also something called a joint societies. So I'm just a little bit confused because, anyways, that's a different thing. So what do I mean by referendum levy societies is NSPOM, CKU, Loaded Lateral, and other such societies where all students pay a levy to these societies. To focus on some of the points, the reason why I felt there should be a review, student outreach on all campuses. So when I'm bringing this motion forward, this is something that you all need to understand. This is not just my motion. This is 2,300 students on section campus that's asking for it. It's not my personal motion. So if my campus has an issue, then that should be an issue that's discussed by the DSU council and needs help. That's the only reason why I'm bringing this motion forward. It's nothing of my personal interest. Are there regular meetings held for societies? Is student outreach on all campuses done properly as required? Are there sufficient people for quorum, elections during board meetings? These are some of the points I elaborated, which I don't wish to do it again, because I'm guessing for some of the faces who are not there at the meeting, but I'm sure they all know. With respect to finance, does society really need a levy increase when they come forward? That's another thing. Is money spent well? Is it spent in a way it should be spent? Is it spent for the right reason when the levy increase is done? I missed out one point in the last meeting with respect to opt-outs. That was another suggestion given by folks on section campus when there was a recent opt-out on section campus. Can this be made online? Can there be a common opt-out system for all societies rather than having different dates for different societies opting out? Some folks even approached me. Some folks even approached me asking why they really don't find it comfortable to going to a table and having an opt-out done. So these are some of the things. So these are some of the questions that I cannot answer, and I'm helpless. And this is the only way I can get answers. Like if I get a review done, if we get a review done, I can then go and answer those students. And there is no other way I can answer those students. With respect to society annual presentation, there was a mandate set, and I'm really grateful and thankful to the Gazette for coming forward and presenting. I'm really hoping that the other societies come forward and present as well, which is a mandate in the society policy, which was not followed for a long time, if I'm right. Correct me if I'm wrong, and there was one or two societies that presented, but this has been a mandate that has been forgotten by most of the levy societies. And I feel this mandate, that is the society shall make an annual presentation to the DSU council. That's the main point where these societies can be held accountable. And that's the only way we DSU councillors can ask questions to them. We have students asking us from our constituencies. If we do not answer them, this is the right opportunity. And if this mandate is not followed, then we as councillors are not doing a good job of not answering questions, which is our job. With respect to society constitution was another thing. We have 6 to 12 members. At least 1 or 2 is as mentioned in some of the society's constitution. I agree to the fact that the society policy says that they have to follow a constitution in a way and they are following that constitution, so they're not wrong in their part, but there's a misrepresentation of students when it comes to at least 1 or 2 DAL students. There can be 50% or 50% plus 1. The reason why I say this is very simple. It's my money, it's your money, it's 18,000 plus students' money. So we need to have more decision power over the way our money is spent. And a budget should be made online. That was another thing that came forward. Many folks on section were asking. I do understand there are societies, in fact, all the societies would not mind sharing their budget if they are approached directly, but it needs to be more transparent. And that is why I asked one of my questions with Gazette that how was your budget transparent at the moment? So that is another thing, if the budget can be made online. The only reason for me putting this motion forward is so that when I walk down on section campus, I can give an answer to those students. If I don't give an answer to those students, I think I'm not doing a good job. And to be very honest, if I cannot give an answer to my students, there is no point being in this position, because my position requires me to answer every question that's arising out from section campus. And that is the only reason why I'm bringing this motion forward. Yes, we can make amendments, we cannot make amendments. I understand the motion also requires that there is a timeline around this motion. Andrew, if you don't mind, you can pull up the last part, the BF is for the result. Yeah, there is a timeline set. That was another point that came up at the last meeting. March 11th is really quick. It won't have much time, and that is the reason why I was encouraging councillors to vote on it the same night. But I understand there was another motion after that, and with due respect to all motions, but anyways, if March 11th is not the right time, what would be the possible right time? But I think March 11th should not be much of a problem, because I think we have, I don't know, more than 1 month for a review of these societies, if the motion passes, obviously. And it'd be really great to know from the society review committee members. We have 2 or 3 probably, I don't know, I'm not sure, society review committee members who can give a better idea of understanding whether this timeline is great or proper. All that I'm doing is my job. That's it. There's nothing much. I'm not going against anybody. So please do not misunderstand that fact. And I would like to put my motion forward this. Thank you.
The floor is open. Yes, Kim.
As a member of the SRC for the past 2 years, I'm in full support of this motion. I think it's important to make sure that students' money is being spent properly, and that there are structures in place to make sure that these societies are operating at the top of their efficiency and maximum outreach is being done. A review is great because different societies obviously will need different changes. Some will be constitutional, some will just be recommendations for better outreach and working with more resources. So I think that it's really important to ensure that students' money is being spent appropriately, and that's something that we can all get behind.
I have Andrew.
I just want to also voice my support for this motion. I think that it can be an important tool to help these levied societies also find ways to improve upon themselves. It's not meant to be a tool to oppress them or to try and take something away from them. It can be used as a means to help them improve on their efforts. I'm sure a lot of them are doing a great job already, but it can just be that extra layer that can really help ensure that everyone's getting the best bang for their buck in terms of outreach and what's being offered.
I have Jomel.
I have a motion to add a be it further result clause, and I have just emailed it to you if you want to pull that up.
Okay. Sure.
So so by the time Andrew pulls up that sort of be it further result clause.
I've got it right here, so just let me.
Yeah. So what it's doing is.
No,
sorry,
I want to put it in this. I'm sorry. I will. So I'll read it. Be it further resolved. Thank you. Be it further resolved that the Society Review Committee specifically include in its report a review of the following areas. Mandate. Is money being spent in line with the Society's mandate as per the levy question? Budget. Is the Society's budget transparent and easily available to students? Student programming. How much money or what portion of the budget? Student consultation decision making. What outreach is being done to collect feedback from students? How many students / which students are involved in the decision making process in board meetings and AGM? Student engagement and outreach. What is the attendance for social events? What has AGM attendance in? If the society has received an increase in levy, how are the increased funds being spent? What is the plan for these societies to grow? For example, growing the number of students participating in societies, growth of services offered. What is the expected increase in levy to sustain this growth? Staff compensation. What portion of the budget is allocated to staff? Are staff being compensated fairly? Is staff compensation justified? What proportion of positions are staffed by students and not students? And by not students. What is the ratio of funds going in versus what students are getting out of it? For every dollar, how much is spent on staff, administration, programming, student-focused events, community events and services? And finally, what can be done to make students aware and get support on levy increases in the future? Does the motion have a second? Sure. So maybe like I think what you want to do is you want the society committee to answer the following questions, right? That's what you want to do. Jamal, yeah, isn't that right?
That is right, but can I speak? Why we should help the councillors understand why I think that's.
Well, I'm just before you get to speak to the amendment, I just want to suggest an amendment specifically include in its report an answer to the following questions, right? That's what you want. Is that?
They review the questions that have, sorry, can I speak?
Yes.
The question that is in this, be it further resolved, is the questions that the SRC, if the motion passes, the SRC will review and give an answer of how these things are run.
Yes.
Like, obviously, we're not expecting a yes or no answer, that's for sure. But how is it implemented? Like, that's what the question is.
Okay. So you're satisfied with your own wording then? With this wording? Okay. Are you satisfied with that wording, Jamal?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, yeah, of course.
So the whole point of this thing that I've added is so that the SRC understands what we are expecting in this report. That's it. So that the SRC is not confused of what should I ask from the society, what should I do, what should I not do. So it gives a structure to this SRC that, okay, this is what we have to do. Let's ask, let's look into these things, and they can prepare a report. So it's making it an easy job for the SRC of what they need to look at. That's the only reason why I put those points forward that they need to review.
So the question is on the amendment, which is that. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Yes, Rebecca.
I would just kind of remind everyone of the presentation we got by Taylor that said that we're supposed to be doing high level stuff at these council meetings, policy that can be generalized to a lot of areas. And there are going to probably be societies where not all these questions specifically are going to apply. I think that we can trust that the committee that reviews the societies knows enough to develop questions that are going to be relevant and will assist council in kind of knowing about the levy societies. So I think that this is an unnecessary addition to an otherwise really good idea.
I have William.
I'd like to ask, what if those policies are implemented within the current review processes of the DSU of those specific items that were mentioned?
Can anyone speak to that?
It's not related. Doesn't seem related.
Point of information.
Yes.
It is the question when reviewing societies and giving a ratification to societies, what is the criteria that is investigated?
Well, the question, I guess, more specifically, is if we're looking at these items within the context of living societies, and while also not currently evaluating those within the context of the DSU as a larger entity, how that morally justified. But
Again.
To echo what Rebecca said, can these be maybe referred to as a guideline for the review? So following areas, or like, I guess what it would do is maybe remove specifically include and just be beautifully resolved that the Society Review Committee includes the following areas as a guideline in their review of the societies. Because as Rebecca said, it might not apply to every levy society, but they can touch on some of them.
Michael?
I think it's important to, and maybe use it as a guideline, but I think it's important to leave a listing of something in there. If not, then when we're asked, what questions did you put against the societies, or how did you review them? Yes, it's understandable saying, well, you know, the committee that does it would be able, but we may not be able to answer that. If we have something listed there saying this is kind of our guidelines or our review policy of what we do. So yes, maybe they don't all fit in that, but at least there is something in place that says this is the standard.
Okay, maybe I'd like to nail down Danny's wording. So be it resolved that the Society Review Committee included in its report. And what was your suggestion?
The following areas to serve as a guideline for the review. Yeah, as applicable.
Included in its report the following areas to serve as a guideline. Okay. Does that sort of get at what you're trying to get at?
It gets at what I'm getting at, but I don't know if it's still I don't know if it's reasonable or not. But
does the motion have a seconder? Andrew, I saw Jacqueline.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that the other option, further to what Rebecca said, is that we could just take this and email it to committee and they can look and figure out, as she said, what's applicable, what's not, and work with it there. We don't have to redo the whole thing.
Kaylee, you probably have something useful to say.
I just wanted to inform council that there might be cases in which some of that information is confidential, private, personal in nature. So for example, if a levy society has a single staff person, it might be inappropriate for them to disclose the salary of that person based on privacy expectations. So just that the language should be left open in such a way that the Society Review Committee isn't being asked to do something that's not permissible.
Jamal?
Yeah, I don't remember all those things. Sorry. Yeah.
Sure.
I just want to, understanding the fact that this may or may not be applicable to all societies, this is, as Michael rightly said, it's just to have something in place that these are the things that we did. That's the only reason behind putting this whole clause additionally. That's the only reason. There is nothing to be harsh on someone or something like that.
But
So,
I think sorry, Danny, I just want to clarify that the question is on the supplement. That you.
Oh, my apologies. Yeah, no, and I think I'm not only echoing again what Jamel's saying, it's just, and what Kaylee said, if, for example, staff compensation can't be listed, like that can be outlined in the report as to why, and just only add to the report. But I think it's just have these serve as a guideline that we as a council can then draw from. Say, we approved the following X amount of guidelines, the X guideline referred to as blank, and then then we have something to draw from later on. Hearing the report.
Michael.
Yeah, kind of, that was what I was gonna say, was saying that. And to the point too, is that very few, and to actually identify something like as if there are positions that they can't give up the information on, because I think that's something we should be aware of as well. I think to have full amount of information so that people can ask, because I've been asked as well about some of the societies and who's on it, because people don't, some of them don't even know what the society is, who's on it, how to get involved with it. I really like the idea of the addition of what we can do to help the societies gain their membership. So this is not an oppressive thing to them. This is something to make it work for everyone.
The question is on the supplement. Is there any further discussion?
In full support of having Danny's motion, having the guidelines, because then the Society Review Committee does have, that's starting point to work from. It's laid out in this motion so that council is able to refer back to it, but doesn't necessarily restrict the society review committee from looking at these areas when they're not applicable.
You had your hand, Jamal?
So does that mean, so if it is a guideline, for example, say, passes, so does that mean that, does it ensure that these areas are included in the report when it's presented to council?
If it's applicable for that specific society.
Okay.
Any further discussion on the settlement? I mean, does everyone have like a rough idea of what the effect is? I mean, so Jamel initially wanted, it looks like a directive, specifically include, right? That looks like a directive, but now it's being amended to be a guideline. So do people like understand the effect of that? Is there any further discussion? Do you understand the question? All those in favor? All those opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Would anyone like their dissents or abstentions noted in the minutes? Okay, the question is on the amendment. Is there any further discussion? No further discussion? Do you understand the question? All those in favor?
Is there still discussion?
I didn't see a hand, but if you have a hand, if you'd like to speak, then you're entitled to.
Yeah, sorry. Can you just scroll down a little bit? There were just parts of this where, like, for example, in the staff compensation area, I really don't see how the committee can determine whether or not the staff are being compensated fairly, or if the staff compensation is justified. I just feel like there's questions in this that, like, I don't see how the committee could make decisions on that. And so I just wanted to bring that to council's attention.
I was just going to say again, I see that as a guideline as applicable to you. You can make some type of judgment if it's appropriate if they're making 7 times the amount of the highest paid DSU executive. I know that's an oversimplification of it, but they're not bound to provide the specific pieces of information if they're not applicable, if they're too difficult to judge.
Really?
I guess this is kind of a question for Caitlin, if that's okay. I was just wondering if there are guidelines that the SRC has gone off before that are similar to this.
Essentially, we just have a society checklist and we go through the constitution, and it has areas covering like membership and finance and that sort of thing. But it's literally just going through making sure that they have certain pieces. It doesn't necessarily go deeper into investigate the different types of societies, so that it doesn't take into account the extra money that type 1 levy societies receive and how that money is spent. And they work off the same criteria as you would for a type 3 society. Or that's right. There is
Actually,
changing.
So type 1 societies that are faculty or referendum mandated go through like a review of we review their constitution every year and base that against society policy. And they also go through an audit process every year, and that's through society policy. And they also have required training to go through. And so they actually are reviewed every single year.
Jamil?
Yeah, I just want to, agree to the fact that that question may not be really applicable. It's not easily possible to know whether is it justified or is staff compensation, how the staff's compensated fairly. But the whole idea behind me adding that question over there was to make students aware that if they're paying $10, this is the money, this is the amount that they're getting in return is being spent on. Like, that was my whole idea, like, if that makes more sense. It's not to say that staff X is paid $1 or staff Y is paid $2. That's not the whole intention of the question. The whole intention of the question is, if I am giving this amount, this much portion is coming back to you, or well, the whole money is directly or indirectly coming to you, but this is spent on this much and this much. That was the whole intention of that question.
Hi, Andrew. William? Please speak up, man.
Sorry, what currently is any are procedures to post the
current practices of review and consideration of these type of levy societies? Is there any posting or publication of such information or sharing with council or?
Sorry, William, I didn't.
Yeah, neither did I.
The current processes to review type one levy societies and stuff, how is that shared with councilors or with the DSU community in general?
It's laid out in detail in society policy, which is on the website. So like everything that a society has to include in their constitution is laid out in society policy. The fact that they have to follow an audit is laid out in society policy.
How are the reviews that we do as the DSU share?
So in order for them to become ratified, they have to go through that review that is outlined in society policy.
Is any of that information shared at all councilors or with the general community of the union?
So whether or not a society has become ratified is shared online and with council. And the process through which they got ratified is online through society policy. Does that answer your question?
Okay, so there's no other information that's shared right now?
No, like what?
Like, if we're bringing up these questions about the sharing of such processes, I just want to make sure that there's nothing else that's shared besides the fact that the societies get reviewed or not reviewed, or ratified or not ratified. Is that true right now?
Well, I mean, like, there might be other things that are shared, but I just don't know what you're.
Is there anything specifically mandated to be shared besides just simple ratification or not ratification?
The reasoning and the decisions of the SRC, is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, something like that. Is there any sharing of such processes or anything else?
Oh.
Danny?
Yeah, in society policy. Like all of the.
Are you referring to like a presentation of the SRC after they've reviewed?
Yeah, I'm just wondering what the current policies are, so it's understood what they are in relationship to the policies currently being explained. Is it just like the ratification and then it comes up in the BDI reports or?
Yeah.
Okay.
The floor is open, but before I recognize anyone, I'll just note that it's, we started the meeting at 6:35, and it's now 9:28. Dan?
I motion to finish the debate on this, have notice of the motions adjourned and announcements adjourned.
So that's three things. You want to call the question, and then you want to table everything else, and then what is it? What was the last one?
And
okay, so the first motion is to call the question on this motion. Does that motion have a second? Brandon? So there was no one on the speakers list, so debate on this, on the amendment actually, that's what you're calling the question on, is the amendment. Okay. I can handle the procedure, Dave. Can I, so the question is to call the question on the amendment.
It's not really in the spirit of what I meant. I meant to finish debate on this.
You want to call the question on the amendment and the motion as a whole?
Yes.
Does that motion have a second? I saw Andrew. Okay, so we would first need to call the question on the amendment, vote on that, and then vote on the motion as a whole. So the question is whether to end debate. It would require 2/3 majority. Do you understand the question? All those in favor? All those opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Would anyone like their dissents or abstentions noted in the minutes? The question is on the amendment. It was amended to specify that the SRC is not specifically mandated to include in this report a review of the following areas, but rather have them serve as a guideline. And I've listed these questions. I mean, I don't think council wants me to read them again. So the question is on the amendment. Do you understand the question? All those in favor? All those opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Would anyone like their dissents or abstentions noted in the minutes? Okay. The question is on the motion as a whole. It was amended to include this last be a result clause that we've been discussing for quite some time. And that was the only amendment to the motion. Do you understand the question?
Sorry, are we not debating?
No, Dan called the question on both.
And 2/3 majority voted.
That's
that.
correct. And I asked for clarification, and received it and got another second. And it was voted 2/3 in favor. So the question is on the motion. Yes, Ben.
Point of clarification, there's the deadline date this year. Is this a one-time thing or an annual occurrence?
This is a one-time thing.
Okay.
That's a good question. Yes, so debate has ended on this motion. And as I said, it was amended to include this last word clause, asking the Society Review Committee to include in its report, like as a guideline, these following questions. Do you understand the question? All those in favor? All those opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Would anyone like their dissents or abstentions noted in the minutes? Jen dissented. Anyone else? Okay. Let's move on. Oh, so, I mean, there's 4 minutes left in the meeting. And half an hour? Does the motion have a second?
Didn't I?
Oh, sorry. So you wanted to table, so you wanted to table and then you wanted to
Table the rest to old business, or old business and then for the next meeting and then go to the rest of the motion.
Right, so the first one is not really a motion, so you want to table everything, right? Sorry about that.
Then we can accept the notice of motion, I guess.
So it's 10E. This is about the statement on the incidences of misogyny and homophobia in the housing sector industry. It would be it would also be the motion to hire an independent governance review consultant, the motion to strike an ad hoc governance review committee, a motion to rescind policy on policy, a motion to adopt a social media code of conduct, and a motion to strike an ad hoc student services review committee. That's what Dan's moving to table those to the next meeting. Does the motion have a second? Caitlin. Discussion. Aaron.
I feel like some of those could be really short. Just thinking of the one governance review. I just know we've been waiting a long time on that. Maybe I'd ask Rem how long that would take because we can't appoint people to the committee and create the committee.
To be honest, I think that this requires some thought and like a solid discussion, and there's especially 2 motions to debate, and I want council to make a proper decision. Just because it's like half an hour, I can't expect a good discussion out of it. And we have other things to get to. I think there are other things might be time sensitive, which might. I mean, the statement has been waiting for 2 weeks already. That might be worth consideration. I don't know if there's time limits on the ad hoc consideration or the social media sort of context. That could also be.
I know that there's 2 minutes left in the meeting. But the question is on tabling the motions I described. Rams.
There was also another motion, the second one, the independent governance review one, that was put in on Sunday, so I don't know if folks had time to actually read it and things like that. So maybe time to read it is good. In the meantime, if you have any questions for me, please, come forward and have a discussion on it next council meeting.
So I know there's 1 minute left in the meeting, and the question is on tabling the motions. Yes, Alan.
Call the question on tabling?
Does the motion have a seconder? Tom? So, thank you so much, Ewan. So there's been no, where are we at here? So there's no one on the speech list, so we don't need a vote. So we'll move directly to, we don't need a vote to call the question, so we'll move directly to a vote to table all those motions. People don't want me to read those motions again. People know what they are. So the question is to table until next meeting. Do you understand the question? All those in favor? All those opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Would anyone like their dissents or abstentions noted in the minutes? Okay. That still leaves, wait, we still have exec business. But you know what? It's 9:35. So those are automatically tabled anyway.
No, I said move it to notices of motion, which is after exec business.
Okay. Well, we're still at notices of motion now, so I'll ask if there are any notices of motion. Yes, Rams.
No, noticing constitution policy, grants policy, And also in 1 month, we'll be we'll be basically making a decision around our membership and student disclosure. So that requires a 1 month notice. So this is a 1 month notice. And formal language or motion will be sent out.
So you want to the next meeting, I'll clarify, amendments to constitution policy, amendments to, what was the other one, grant policy, and you want in 2 meetings from now, what was the third thing?
February 25th. Yes, our decision about membership and student disclosure.
Right, so you want a motion to, so what is the purpose and what is the effect of the motion?
Well, it's to basically review our membership and student disclosure every year. And it's reviewing our duty as executive to bring it to council.
To review membership?
Yes.
In SNS?
Yes.
Okay.
And the process, according to their bylaws, according to our constitution, requires a 30-day notice. It requires for them, like, that we notice it before March 1st. It requires that council make a vote and then make a second vote. You know, so I mean, we're just going by the books, and we're doing it in advance.
Do you have so I want to finish with the notices of motion. Are there any further notices of motion?
Point of information. Does the person who notices a motion have to be the person who
Moves it, that's correct.
That is correct.
That's correct. That's how it's always been. I guess I'll ask William now, since I asked.
Does the verbal notice of motion work within SNS policy?
I can't hear you, William.
Does the verbal notice of motion of such a thing work within SNS policy?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just wondering.
They were sent notice, they were sent written notice.
Are there any further notices of motion?
Point of information. There was somebody who was going to notice a motion. They couldn't be here to the end of the meeting. And so I don't want to stall that coming up at the next meeting. I can't be at the next meeting, so I can't notice the motion.
So what happens
Is
here,
there a way
what
around
happens
that?
here is that if you move it now, then it's in your name and it goes to the next meeting. And if you're not there, then I ask if anyone wants to take care of the motion.
Okay.
And there's a vote on that.
All right, so notice of motion. 2, that there will be a motion on a policy that makes it where we make a statement about the university or whatever event the union does, being on unceded Mi'kmaq territory along those lines.
Right.
We had the presentation.
Yes, okay. Are there any further notices of motion? We'll do informal announcements, because the council meeting wasn't extended, so I mean, we're adjourned at this point.
Okay.
But you can make informal announcements.
Okay, this is a really important announcement, really quickly. So as you might know, there's a task force right now under Strategic Initiative 5.2 on diversity and inclusion within the university. We're doing about 80 meetings over the course of 2 weeks, trying to get a number of student groups. If you would like to meet with the task force, please go online, get in touch with us. There's like all over the website. You can also just email me directly and you can have a meeting. I know we met with a couple of student groups over the weekend, but more is better.
And they have action in 1 week.
Right?
All out. Yeah.
Academic amnesty was passed through the Senate, so we just skip class to go to the day of action. You will not be penalized for doing so. Contact your professor.
And there's pizza in the back for those who didn't get it first.